Thanks for joining. Find your most relaxing position, take a slow breath in, and let's begin our very quiet stroll through history. The crack of dawn in a 12th century English monastery isn't heralded by a rooster's crow or the sun creeping over the horizon. Nope, it's the resonant clang of a bell that yanks you from sleep. Welcome to the life of a medieval monk, where your day is dictated by the rule of St. Benedict, a medieval bestseller if ever there was one, but with a plot as predictable as a rerun. This guidebook to monastic life makes sure every monk's day is a mix of prayer, work, and, well, more prayer. By now, you're shuffling to the church for matins, the first service of the day, which kicks off in the dead of night. Think of it as the medieval version of a 24-hour gym, but instead of getting swole, you're aiming for spiritual enlightenment. There's a certain romance in the idea of devoted monks praying in the wee hours, but the reality? It's freezing, your feet are bare, and you're trying not to nod off during the psalms. You're joined by the rest of the brotherly crew, each one as bleary-eyed as the next, all gathered in the dimly lit stone church. After matins, there's a brief respite to catch a bit more sleep, if you can manage it. But don't get too cozy, because before you know it, you're back in the church for lauds as dawn breaks. This is the moment where the rule of St. Benedict really shines, like a medieval timetable on steroids. Benedict believed that idleness was the enemy of the soul, so he prescribed a full schedule to keep you busy from sunrise to sunset. Following lauds, there's time for a bit of personal prayer or meditation. In the tranquility of the cloisters, you might ponder profound spiritual questions or, more likely, wonder when breakfast is. Monasteries weren't just spiritual centres, they were economic powerhouses too. You're part of a well-oiled machine that's responsible for everything from agricultural production to manuscript copying. Now, let's talk breakfast, or, as it's known here, the first meal after a morning's worth of prayers. This isn't exactly a feast. Picture something more like porridge with a side of bread. If you're lucky, there might be some cheese involved. The monk's diet is a far cry from the medieval feasting we often imagine, but it's all about sustenance, not indulgence. After you've eaten, it's time to roll up those wide sleeves and get to work. The stereotype of monks as isolated hermits is pure myth. Sure, the walls are high, but the gates aren't exactly locked. Monks play an integral role in the local economy. You might find yourself in the scriptorium, painstakingly copying manuscripts, a task that requires both precision and patience. Imagine spending hours hunched over a desk, quill in hand, copying text by candlelight. Or perhaps you're out in the fields, part of the agricultural workforce that sustains the monastery, and by extension, the local community. Monasteries were the medieval equivalent of multinational corporations. They owned vast tracts of land and were central to the region's economy. The work is hard, but it's also a chance to interact with lay brothers and even local villagers who work the lands. And let's not forget the education system. Schools within monasteries were the seats of learning, where boys from wealthy families would be educated. You might have a hand in teaching, contributing to the intellectual growth of future leaders, or at least ensuring they can read the scriptures. By midday, it's time for the next service, terce, followed by the main meal of the day dinner. Don't get your hopes up for a medieval buffet, it's more humble fare, but enough to keep you going. The afternoon brings more work, whether it's in the fields, the library, or dealing with the day-to-day running of the monastery, which is essentially a mini-city-state. The myth of monastic isolation also crumbles when you consider the monks' interactions with the community. Monasteries provide charity to the poor, medical care to the sick, and spiritual guidance to all comers. The gates are open to travellers and pilgrims, and their presence means the monks are anything but isolated. As the afternoon stretches on, you return to the church for the remaining services, none, vespers, and finally, compline. Each service is a moment to pause and reflect, an opportunity to drown out the noise of the outside world, if only for a few minutes. By the time compline wraps up, the sun has set, and it's time to retire to your cell. It's a long day, punctuated by prayer and work, but there's a rhythm to it, a sense of purpose. Life as a medieval monk isn't about grand gestures or epic quests, but the quiet fulfillment found in routine and service. It's a far cry from the romanticized vision of solitude and contemplation, but it's real, practical, and essential to the medieval world. So, as you lay down on your straw mattress, ready to snatch a few hours of sleep before the bell tolls again, maybe you find a little comfort in knowing that your life, as regimented as it is plays a vital role in the grand tapestry of medieval society. It's not glamorous, but it's yours, and maybe that's enough. As you drift off on that not-so-cushy straw mattress, let's take a detour into the fields surrounding your medieval monastic haven. Forget everything you thought you knew about farming in the Middle Ages. This isn't just some quaint scene of peasants aimlessly tilling the land. This is serious business, more like a medieval agribusiness with a side of spirituality. Monasteries in 12th century England were the economic engines of their time, driving agricultural innovation like a turbocharged ox plough. Picture sprawling fields of wheat, barley and rye, the holy trinity of medieval grains. And don't forget the legumes, peas, beans and lentils. These were the unsung heroes of a monk's diet, the fibre-packed fuel that kept the cloister running smoothly. Now, if you're imagining a disorganized patchwork of crops, think again. Monks applied a sophisticated three-field system, one field for winter crops, another for summer crops, and a third left fallow. This clever crop rotation increased yields and kept the soil healthy, which is about as cutting edge as it got back then. But wait, there's livestock too. Monks raised sheep, cattle, pigs and chickens. Not only were these animals a source of food, think milk, cheese and the occasional meat feast, but they were also integral to the agricultural cycle. Sheep provided wool for clothing, cattle hauled ploughs and carts, and pigs? Well, pigs were the medieval garbage disposal system, gobbling up leftovers with an enthusiasm that'd make a vacuum cleaner jealous. It's a whole ecosystem, folks, and the monks were the ringmasters. Now, you might think of monks as living lives of pious poverty, scraping by on crusts of bread while humming Gregorian chants. But here's the kicker. Monasteries were rolling in dough, quite literally sometimes. Through clever management of their agricultural enterprises, they amassed wealth and influence. They owned vast stretches of land, often gifted by nobles seeking divine favour or a quick ticket to heaven. And those lands? They were cash cows. Let's talk tithes, the medieval equivalent of a subscription model. Peasants working on monastic lands paid a tenth of their produce as a tithe, which added up to a significant haul. Imagine the scene, cartloads of grain, baskets of vegetables, barrels of ale, all making their way to the monastery storerooms. Rents were another revenue stream. Peasants paid not only in produce, but also in labour, working the monastery's fields a few days each week. This system wasn't just a slapdash arrangement, it was a well-oiled machine of feudal economics. And if you think the monks were sitting on piles of gold, think again. Their wealth was often reinvested in the community, building churches, funding charities, and maintaining roads. In a way, monasteries were like medieval banks, safeguarding wealth and redistributing it for the greater good. Sounds noble, right? But let's not get too misty-eyed here. This was also about power and influence. The more wealth a monastery amassed, the more sway it held over both the secular and spiritual realms. Monastic self-sufficiency was legendary. They didn't just grow food, they brewed beer, made wine, and crafted cheese. Talk about a one-stop medieval supermarket. This self-reliance wasn't just practical, it was a statement. It said, "We're independent, resourceful, and we don't need your secular nonsense." But of course, they did interact with the outside world. Trade was essential. Monasteries engaged in commerce, selling surplus produce and crafted goods at local markets. They were hubs of trade, connecting rural communities to the broader economy. And here's a fun fact. Some monasteries even had their own watermills and windmills. These were cutting-edge technologies that harnessed the power of nature to grind grain into flour. This wasn't just about efficiency, it was about control. With their mills, monasteries could process grain more quickly and charge for the service, adding another layer to their economic might. So, while the romanticized notion of monks as ascetic hermits has its charm, the reality is far more complex and far more interesting. These weren't just men in robes chanting in isolation. They were savvy businessmen, agricultural innovators, and community leaders. They wielded power and influence not just through spiritual means, but through economic clout. As you pull the rough woolen blanket over your shoulders and drift into sleep, consider this. The monastery is not just a place of prayer and reflection. It's a bustling enterprise, a community lifeline, and a testament to the ingenuity and adaptability of medieval society. You may not have a cushy mattress or a hot cup of coffee waiting for you in the morning, but you're part of something bigger, a living, breathing tapestry of faith, labour, and economic prowess. And as any monk could tell you, that's worth waking up for when the bell tolls once more. As the bell once more tolls in the distance, signalling the start of yet another chapter in your monastic saga, let's pivot our focus to a realm where monks weren't just field labourers or spiritual drones. Welcome to the intellectual heart of the monastery, the library and the school. If you bought into the notion that medieval monks were the solitary nerds of the Middle Ages, hoarding scrolls in dank corners, it's time to adjust that mental image. Sure, monks played a pivotal role in preserving knowledge, but they weren't the only game in town. By midday, the monastery is abuzz with scholarly activity. You might find yourself in the scriptorium, surrounded by piles of parchment and the faint scent of ink. It's here that the myth of monks as the sole keepers of knowledge begins to unravel. While it's true that monks copied texts with the precision of a human Xerox, let's not forget they were part of a broader intellectual ecosystem. Monasteries often collaborated with cathedral schools and universities, which were sprouting up like intellectual mushrooms across Europe. By the end of the 12th century, places like Oxford and Paris were buzzing with scholarly activity, offering an academic buffet far beyond the cloister walls. Monastic libraries were the medieval equivalent of the Library of Congress, minus the modern conveniences of duodecimal. They housed everything from theological treatises to classical texts by the likes of Aristotle and Cicero. But here's the kicker. Latin wasn't the only language echoing through these stone halls. The translation movement, fueled by the contact with the Islamic world, brought a treasure trove of knowledge from Arabic into Latin. This wasn't just a one-way street. Knowledge flowed across cultures like intellectual trade winds. Think of it as a medieval remix, with monks playing the role of scholarly DJs, spinning texts into new contexts. The idea that the Middle Ages were a dark intellectual abyss is as outdated as a floppy disk. Monastic schools were churning out educated individuals like a medieval version of Hogwarts. Boys from noble families, and occasionally even talented commoners, flocked to these institutions to learn the 7 liberal arts: grammar, rhetoric, logic, arithmetic, geometry, music, and astronomy. These weren't just quaint courses. They were the building blocks of a well-rounded education. And while your average monk might not be penning the next great medieval novel, they were ensuring that knowledge wasn't lost to the sands of time. Education in the monastery was a mix of rote learning and critical thinking. It wasn't just about memorizing scripture or chanting psalms like a Gregorian jukebox. Monks engaged in debate and discussion, wrestling with philosophical questions that would make even Socrates proud. Picture a room full of monks, each sporting a tonsure, those charming bald patches, and engaging in lively debate. The air crackles with intellectual excitement, a far cry from the silent stereotype. Now, let's talk about the economic side of all this scholarly activity. Running a monastic school wasn't exactly cheap. Parchment wasn't just lying around for free, it was made from animal skins and required a labour-intensive process to produce. A single manuscript could take months to copy and cost a small fortune. But monasteries found ways to fund their educational endeavours. They charged tuition, accepted endowments from wealthy patrons, and sometimes even engaged in the lucrative trade of selling illuminated manuscripts. It's worth noting that while monks were busy preserving and disseminating knowledge, they were also shaping the intellectual landscape. Through their work, they influenced the curriculum of burgeoning universities, helping to lay the foundation for the Renaissance. The idea that monks were the sole custodians of knowledge is a romantic oversimplification. They were part of a vibrant network of scholars, translators, and thinkers who kept the torch of knowledge burning brightly through the so-called Dark Ages. As you wander through the cloisters during your midday break, the sun casting long shadows on the stone, you might reflect on the dual nature of your life here. On one hand, you're part of a sacred tradition stretching back centuries. On the other, you're a cog in the intellectual engine of Europe, helping to preserve and propagate the knowledge that will one day fuel the fires of the Renaissance. So, dear medieval monk, as you return to your studies or your scribe's desk, consider the role you play in this grand tapestry. You're not just a solitary figure in a robe. You're part of a complex web of knowledge and curiosity that spans continents and centuries. The Middle Ages might have been dimly lit by modern standards, but they were far from dark. They were a time of transition, of preservation, and of quiet revolution. And you, with your quill and your parchment, are right at the heart of it all. As the afternoon sun begins to dip below the horizon, casting a golden hue over the monastery, you prepare to return to the rhythm of prayer and work. But let this thought linger. In a world where knowledge is power, you and your fellow monks are the unsung heroes of an intellectual saga that will echo through the ages. Just remember to keep that ink from spilling on your habit. As the ink dries on your latest manuscript and you shuffle once more into the dimly lit chapel, it's time to dive into the spiritual side of monastic life. Our medieval monk isn't just a farmer, scholar, or community leader. He's first and foremost a spiritual athlete, sprinting through a marathon of prayer and contemplation. The concept of ora et labora, or pray and work, is the lifeblood of your daily grind. But in a world where the lines between church and state are blurrier than a medieval ink blot, this spiritual devotion is tangled up with worldly responsibilities. Your day is a veritable symphony of services: matins, lauds, prime, terce, sext, none, vespers, and compline. It's like a spiritual playlist on repeat. These aren't just quick Hail Mary moments. Each service can stretch on for a good 30 to 45 minutes. So, if you're counting, that's 4 to 5 hours of liturgical duties every single day. It's the medieval monk's version of a never-ending Zoom call, complete with the risk of dozing off when someone else is droning on. But why all this praying? Well, it's not just about personal salvation. It's a communal act meant to intercede for the entire world. Monasteries are spiritual powerhouses, and monks are the unsung intercessors believed to keep society in divine favour. It's like a celestial insurance policy, and you're the adjuster, making sure everyone's covered. Now, let's chat about the balance between spiritual devotion and worldly responsibilities. The Rule of St. Benedict, which is basically the monastic rule book, isn't just a guide to non-stop praying. It's a manifesto for a balanced life. Benedict was no fool. He understood that prayer without work was as ineffective as a quill with no ink. Hence, the ora et labora approach, a perfect blend of spiritual and physical labour designed to keep monks grounded and, quite literally, in the fields. But here's the kicker. This spiritual devotion comes with a side of political clout. Monasteries aren't just religious retreats. They're powerhouses with fingers in every pie. Picture this. A local lord wants to curry favour with the church or secure a heavenly afterlife. What does he do? He gifts land to the monastery, turning it into a spiritual and economic ally. It's a win-win. The lord gets spiritual brownie points and the monastery grows its influence. By the 12th century, monasteries are sitting pretty on vast tracts of land, and with land comes power. The political landscape of monasticism is as intricate as a Byzantine mosaic. Monasteries wield influence over local lords, bishops, and even kings. They're the medieval equivalent of lobbyists with a divine twist. If you're a medieval ruler, you'd do well to keep the monks on your good side. They can sway public opinion, provide counsel, and even serve as intermediaries between secular powers and the church hierarchy. In a time when religion is as omnipresent as the air you breathe, monasteries are kingmakers, power brokers, and spiritual arbiters rolled into one. Now, about those relationships with local lords. It's less Game of Thrones and more Game of Monks, with strategic alliances and occasional rivalries. Lords and monasteries often engage in a delicate dance of mutual benefit and dependency. The monks need protection and resources, while the lords desire the spiritual and social clout that comes with monastic patronage. It's a symbiotic relationship, like bees and flowers, but with fewer stingers and more ecclesiastical robes. Yet, monasteries aren't just cozying up to secular power for kicks. They're also keeping a watchful eye on the ecclesiastical hierarchy. The abbot, the big cheese of the monastery, often has to navigate a complex web of church politics. While bishops might seem like natural allies, the reality is more complicated. Bishops have their own agendas, and monasteries often find themselves caught in the crossfire of ecclesiastical power struggles. It's a bit like medieval chess, with bishops, abbots, and lords all manoeuvring for advantage on the ever-shifting board of medieval politics. And let's not forget the Holy See, the Pope. Monasteries often write to Rome, seeking papal privileges or protection from local predations. The papacy, in return, often relies on monasteries as bastions of orthodoxy and reform. So, if you're an abbot with ambitions, a letter from the Pope can be worth its weight in gold, or at least in indulgences. The church hierarchy is a labyrinthine structure that would make a modern corporate ladder look like child's play. Abbots, bishops, archbishops, cardinals. It's a veritable who's who of ecclesiastical power. And while monks might be at the bottom of this spiritual totem pole, monasteries as institutions hold a surprising amount of sway. In a world where faith and politics intertwine like vines around a medieval turret, the monastery is both sanctuary and stronghold. As you wrap up another day of spiritual devotion and return to your cell, consider the intricate balancing act you're performing. You're not just praying for your soul, you're part of a larger dance of power, politics, and piety that shapes the medieval world. Monasteries are more than mere retreats from the world. They're pivotal players in a grand drama that spans the sacred and the secular. So, as you lay your head down for a brief rest before the bell tolls once more, remember this. Your life is a testament to the enduring power of faith and its complex relationship with the world. You may be cloistered, but your influence extends far beyond the monastery walls into the very heart of medieval society. And, as any savvy monk knows, that's a legacy worth staying awake for, even during the longest of prayers. As you nestle into your straw mattress for a few precious hours of sleep, let's unfurl the tapestry of medieval monasticism and its legacy. Monasteries were the Swiss Army knives of the Middle Ages, versatile, indispensable, and surprisingly sharp. Sure, there's a romantic allure to the notion of monks as solitary figures, heads bowed in perpetual prayer. But peel back the myth, and you'll find these institutions were bustling hubs of innovation, cultural exchange, and yes, a dash of economic cunning. Monasteries were the ultimate think tanks of their time, spearheading agricultural advances like the three-field system and crop rotation. This wasn't just a neat trick for boosting harvests, it was a game changer, allowing Europe to sustain its growing population. Picture it, a medieval monk in a habit, more Bill Gates than Friar Tuck, orchestrating a food production revolution that kept the granaries full and the populace fed. And let's not overlook their role in brewing and winemaking. Monks were the original craft brewers, concocting ales and wines that were as much a part of their diet as their prayers. In this sense, they were the medieval answer to a microbrewery, minus the hipster crowd. But the monastery's contributions weren't limited to agriculture and spirits. They were also the cultural crossroads of the medieval world. Monks were the custodians of classical knowledge, preserving texts from Greek philosophers to Roman poets. They weren't just hoarding these treasures like a dragon with a library card, they were actively copying, translating, and disseminating them. This intellectual cross-pollination was pivotal, sowing the seeds for the Renaissance that would bloom centuries later. Think of monasteries as the intellectual Wi-Fi of the Middle Ages, keeping the signal strong and the ideas flowing. Yet, while it's tempting to view monks as the benevolent nerds of the medieval period, let's not ignore the harsher truths. Monastic life was a strict regimen of discipline, obedience, and, let's be honest, a fair bit of drudgery. The rule of Saint Sainton. Benedict was less a guide and more a spiritual boot camp. Wake up at ungodly hours, pray until your knees ache, and work until your hands blister. It's not exactly the stuff of fairy tales, is it? Then there's the economic entanglement. Monasteries were entwined with the feudal system, their fortunes tied to land, tithes, and the whims of local lords. They were landowners on a grand scale, with vast estates that rivaled those of the nobility. This wasn't just about spiritual stewardship, it was a power play. The more land a monastery held, the more influence it wielded. And with influence came the occasional conflict. Monasteries were often embroiled in disputes over land rights, tithes, and privileges. It's a far cry from the serene image of cloistered peace, a reminder that even the pious weren't above a good old-fashioned property squabble. Yet, despite these gritty realities, the legacy of medieval monasticism is profound. These institutions were the glue that held medieval society together, providing education, healthcare, and hospitality. They were the medieval welfare state, offering alms to the poor and refuge to travellers. In a world where the state was often distant and ineffective, monasteries were the safety net, the hospital, and the university rolled into one. Fast forward to today, and the echoes of monastic life still resonate. The hallmarks of monastic innovation, sustainable agriculture, classical education, and communal living continue to shape our world. The monastic model of self-sufficiency and community support finds its modern parallels in everything from eco-villages to co-working spaces. And let's not forget the enduring allure of the monastic lifestyle. The idea of stepping away from the chaos of modern life to seek spiritual fulfillment remains a compelling one. It's no wonder that retreats and meditation centers draw those yearning for a taste of that monastic calm, minus the vow of silence and the 3 a.m. wake-up calls. So, as you drift into sleep, ponder this. The medieval monk's life was a tapestry of contradictions. Sublime devotion intertwined with earthly entanglements, spiritual aspirations tempered by harsh realities. Yet, through it all, these monastic communities left an indelible mark on history. They were the quiet architects of change, the unsung heroes of a transformative era. And in a world that often seems as tumultuous as the Middle Ages, perhaps we can still draw inspiration from their legacy of balance, resilience, and quiet innovation. Now, that's a thought worth waking up for when the bells toll once more. You wake up to the sound of merchants setting up their stalls and the distant clamour of Athenians going about their business. Welcome to 4th century BC, Athens, where democracy is all the rage and philosophy is the hottest trend since sliced bread. Well, if sliced bread existed, which it doesn't, but let's not get hung up on that. The air is thick with anticipation and maybe a few other things you'd rather not think about. Today, you're about to rub shoulders with the creme de la creme of thinkers, starting with the man of the hour, Socrates himself. As you step out onto the bustling streets, it's like diving headfirst into the ancient world's version of Times Square. The agora, Athens' heart and soul, sprawls before you, a chaotic blend of market stalls, gossiping citizens, and, of course, philosophers. This is where the magic happens. Forget Twitter. The agora is where ideas are tweeted, retweeted, and occasionally debated into oblivion. The difference? Here, if things get heated, you might actually get a tomato thrown at your head. Socrates, the original street philosopher, is in his element. Picture a man of about 70, with a face that looks like it's seen a few too many debates and maybe a bar fight or two, likely the result of asking uncomfortable questions at the wrong symposium. He roams around, sandals barely making a sound on the well-trodden paths, yet his presence is anything but quiet. Today he's working his Socratic magic, questioning everything from the price of olives, which, by the way, is around 2 drachmas a jar, quite the splurge to the meaning of life itself. Now, before you roll your eyes at the thought of yet another philosophical chat, here's why this matters. In Athens, these discussions aren't just idle chatter. They're the very fabric of democracy. Picture this. You're in a city where every citizen, well, every male citizen, because let's not kid ourselves about how inclusive this democracy really is, gets a say in running the place. Philosophical debates aren't just for the intellectual elite. They're essential training for anyone who wants to cast a vote or hold office. It's like a crash course in civic responsibility, only with more sandals and fewer textbooks. As you weave through the crowd, you catch snippets of conversations, politics, ethics, what constitutes a good life. A group of young men, possibly aspiring politicians or just trying to impress their peers, cluster around Socrates. He's in the midst of one of his famous dialectical exchanges. The unexamined life is not worth living, he declares, his voice carrying over the din. It's one of those lines that sticks with you, the kind you might write on your pottery if you had a potter's wheel handy. Sure, the idea of questioning everything might sound exhausting, but for Athenians, it's exhilarating. It's like mental gymnastics without the fear of pulling a hamstring. And Socrates, he's the coach, pushing you to think harder, deeper. Whether he's asking about virtue, justice, or why the baker always overcharges for stale bread, he's always probing, always pushing boundaries. But let's not get too carried away with the romance of it all. Life in Athens isn't all deep thoughts and democracy. There's a gritty reality lurking beneath this philosophical utopia. For one, not everyone appreciates Socrates' relentless questioning. Some find it downright annoying. And then there's the small matter of daily survival. Food, shelter, the odd Spartan invasion. A jar of olives might set you back 2 drachmas, but rent for a modest home can cost upwards of 30 drachmas a month. That's a lot of olives. Still, there's a certain charm to it all. The agora is a melting pot of ideas and ideals. You've got politicians rubbing shoulders with artisans, scholars debating with soldiers, and in the middle of it all, Socrates, the gadfly of Athens, buzzing around and keeping everyone on their toes. He's not just a philosopher, he's a living, breathing catalyst for change, challenging the status quo with every question he asks. As the sun climbs higher, casting long shadows across the marble columns, you can't help but marvel at the sheer audacity of it all. Here, in this ancient city, democracy is more than a system of government. It's a way of life. And philosophy isn't just for the ivory tower, it's the pulse of the city, driving every debate, every decision. So, what's next on today's agenda? The day is young, and the agora is alive with the promise of more debates, more questions, and maybe even a few answers. With Socrates leading the charge, you're in for a whirlwind of ideas and insights. Just remember to keep your wits about you, and maybe a few drachmas handy for a mid-morning snack. As the sun begins its lazy descent, casting an amber glow over the agora, it's time to leave behind the bustling marketplace and head for a different kind of intellectual feast. Welcome to the symposium, the ancient Greek equivalent of a swanky cocktail party, where wine flows and words fly with equal abandon. Picture a room buzzing with anticipation, a place where the elite of Athens gather not just to sip on diluted wine, because let's face it, who wants to get plastered when you have philosophy to discuss, but to engage in debates that are as diverse as they are enlightening. Now, don't let the glamorous notion of a symposium fool you. It's not all silk togas and intellectual sparring for everyone. These gatherings are as much about social pecking order as they are about exchanging ideas. Imagine a room that's set up with couches arranged in a U-shape, the center of attention being a raised platform where the most esteemed guests recline. These are the intellectual heavyweights, the creme de la creme, if you will. If you're lucky, you might find yourself perched on one of these prime spots. But if you haven't yet made your mark on the Athenian social scene, you're likely stuck sitting on a stool somewhere in the back. It's like being at a concert and realizing your ticket only gets you standing room behind a pillar. As you settle into your spot, you're handed a kylix, a shallow drinking cup. But let's not get too excited about the beverages. The wine is heavily watered down, a mix of about 1 part wine to 3 parts water. This isn't because the Greeks were lightweight drinkers. It's a strategic move to keep the conversation flowing without descending into the kind of chaos that would make Dionysus blush. After all, the aim here isn't to get tipsy, but to engage in some mental gymnastics. The symposium isn't just a free-for-all of ideas either. There's a certain etiquette and structure to these gatherings. Think of it as a cross between a frat party and a TED talk, with a dash of ancient Greek politeness thrown in for good measure. The host, known as the symposiarch, sets the agenda and decides the topics for discussion. This could range from the deeply philosophical like pondering the nature of virtue to the downright peculiar. Ever wonder why birds fly south for the winter? You might just find yourself embroiled in a debate on avian habits here. As the conversation ebbs and flows, it becomes clear that these symposia are not just about intellectual stimulation, they're a showcase of social standing. Being seen at the right symposium with the right people can elevate your status faster than a well-placed olive oil endorsement. It's a networking event of epic proportions, where alliances are formed and reputations are made or broken. And while it might seem like just a gathering of well-dressed philosophers, there's a lot of political maneuvering happening just below the surface. The talk tonight is lively, with discussions ricocheting from the governance of the polis to the merits of different types of poetry. You find yourself caught up in a spirited debate about the ideal form of government. Someone throws out the idea of a philosopher king, and the room buzzes with excitement. It's a tantalizing notion, especially in a city like Athens, where democracy rules the day. But as enticing as the idea is, it's met with skepticism. After all, power and wisdom don't always walk hand in hand, and the room is full of people who've seen their fair share of political folly. The topics are heady, but don't be fooled into thinking it's all serious business. There's a fair amount of humour and ribbing thrown into the mix. The Greeks have a knack for weaving wit into their discourse, and as the night goes on, the laughter flows as freely as the wine. It's a reminder that even the most profound ideas can benefit from a touch of levity. But let's not sugarcoat things. While the symposium is an intellectual powerhouse, it's also a stark reminder of the inequalities of the time. Women, for example, are conspicuously absent from these gatherings, relegated to the fringes of society, while the menfolk debate the virtues of democracy and virtue. And while the symposia are great for rubbing elbows with the city's intellectual elite, it's a closed club for many, a space where social hierarchies are as rigid as the columns of the Parthenon. As the evening wears on and the topics become increasingly esoteric, you can't help but marvel at the sheer audacity of it all. Here is a city where ideas are currency, where the exchange of thoughts is as vital as the exchange of goods in the agora. The symposium is a microcosm of Athenian society, a testament to their love of debate and their unyielding pursuit of knowledge. And yet, beneath the surface, it's clear that these gatherings are as much about maintaining social order as they are about philosophical inquiry. The symposium is a stage where social dynamics play out in real time, where the seating arrangement can speak volumes about a person's place in the social hierarchy. It's a complex dance of intellect and status, one that requires as much skill to navigate as any philosophical dilemma. As the evening draws to a close and the final dregs of wine are consumed, you leave the symposium with a head full of ideas and perhaps a new perspective or two. The conversations linger in the air like the last notes of a lyre, a reminder that in Athens the pursuit of knowledge is never truly over. There's always another question to ask, another debate to be had. But for now, it's time to step away from the intellectual fervour and back into the night, ready to see what the city's labyrinthine streets will offer next. In this ancient city, where the past and the present intertwine in a delicate dance, the symposium is just one piece of the puzzle. Yet, it's an essential one, offering insight into the minds that shaped a civilization. As you wander back through the dimly lit streets, you can't help but feel a part of something greater, a witness to the living tapestry of history that continues to unfold with each passing day. As you wander back through the dimly lit streets, the echoes of philosophical banter still reverberating in your mind, you find yourself nearing a different kind of intellectual hub, the academy. Now, if the agora was Athens' version of a bustling marketplace of ideas, the academy is more like a quiet corner cafe, where the serious thinkers hang out, sipping their metaphorical espressos and pondering the mysteries of existence. This is Plato's domain, a place where you can almost hear the clash of ideas over the rustling leaves of the sacred olive trees. But let's not get too misty-eyed about Plato's academy. This isn't some exclusive ivory tower where only the elite gain entry. In fact, the whole setup is surprisingly democratic for its time. Think of it as more of a pay-what-you-can establishment than a highbrow Ivy League institution. The costs are flexible, donations are encouraged, but there's no tuition fee that would bankrupt a small polis. It's a place where the currency is curiosity, and the tuition is your willingness to engage in rigorous thought. Quite a deal, especially when you consider that Socratic wisdom is just a few drachmas away, if not entirely free. Now, you might be wondering why these philosophical schools are sprouting up like weeds in a garden. It's simple. The Athenians are obsessed with knowledge. And why shouldn't they be? In a city where every male citizen has a say in government, knowing your stuff is both a personal and civic duty. It's like prepping for a TED Talk that never ends, except instead of PowerPoint slides you've got scrolls, and instead of a laser pointer you've got, well, your finger. The Academy's emphasis on knowledge for the sake of civic virtues resonates deeply with the Athenians. To them, philosophy isn't just an academic exercise, it's the backbone of a functioning democracy. Or at least, their version of democracy, which, let's face it, isn't exactly inclusive of women, slaves, or foreigners. But hey, it's a start. The pursuit of knowledge here is akin to a public service. It's about creating citizens who can critically assess the world around them and make decisions that benefit the polis. In modern terms, it's like taking a crash course in civic engagement with a side of existential angst. But let's not get too carried away with romanticizing this intellectual utopia. Sure, the academy is a haven for the mind, but it's also a reflection of societal hierarchies. The students here are primarily young men, from families who can afford to let them ponder life's big questions instead of toiling in the fields. It's a bit like having the luxury of time to pursue a liberal arts degree when others are scrambling to make ends meet. So, while the academy fosters a certain egalitarian spirit in terms of access, it doesn't entirely escape the trappings of social privilege. Plato himself is something of an enigmatic figure. A student of Socrates, He inherited his teacher's penchant for asking questions that make people squirm in their sandals. His dialogues are peppered with characters who, let's be honest, are thinly veiled stand-ins for his contemporaries. It's like reading a philosophical thriller where everyone knows the book is really about them. And while Plato's ideas are lofty, ranging from the nature of justice to the ideal state, they're not without their critics. His notion of philosopher kings, for instance, might sound appealing in theory, but in practice it raises more than a few eyebrows. After all, a ruler who claims to know what's best for everyone can quickly veer into autocracy, which is a bit of a buzzkill in a democracy-loving city. Yet, despite, or perhaps because of, these debates, schools like the Academy are flourishing. They're popping up faster than modern-day coffee shops, each with its own flavour of wisdom to offer. Whether it's Plato's Academy, Aristotle's Lyceum, or the cynics shouting their disdain for materialism in the streets, there's something for everyone in Athens' intellectual smorgasbord. It's a testament to the city's vibrant culture and its insatiable appetite for knowledge. But don't let the allure of these philosophical havens fool you into thinking they're immune to the harsh realities of the world. The political climate in Athens is as turbulent as ever, with power struggles and shifting alliances that would make a Game of Thrones episode look tame. The city's intellectuals aren't isolated from these machinations. They're often caught in the crossfire, their ideas influencing and being influenced by the political tides. It's a reminder that even in the pursuit of truth, there are no ivory towers high enough to escape the reach of politics. As you take in the serene surroundings of the Academy, it's clear that this place is more than just a school. It's a crucible of thought where ideas are forged and tested in the fires of debate. It's a hub of innovation, where the seeds of Western philosophy are being sown, ready to blossom into concepts that will shape the world for centuries to come. And yet, it's also a microcosm of Athenian society, with all its complexities and contradictions. In this city where the past is always present, where the marble columns whisper stories of glory and folly, the Academy stands as a testament to the enduring power of ideas. It's a place where the mind is free to roam, where the only limits are those imposed by one's imagination. And as you walk away from this hallowed ground, you can't help but feel that you've been a part of something extraordinary, a witness to the birth of ideas that will echo through the ages. The sun is now setting, casting a golden glow over the city, and as you head back into the bustling streets of Athens, you carry with you the knowledge that in this ancient world the pursuit of wisdom is as vital as the air you breathe. It's a pursuit that transcends time, a reminder that even in the face of uncertainty and change, the quest for understanding is a constant, a beacon that lights the way forward. And so, with the promise of new questions to explore and new ideas to uncover, you step into the night, ready for whatever the Athenian labyrinth has in store next. And just like that, the sun dips below the horizon, a celestial stagehand signalling the curtain rise on Athens' evening entertainment. But don't expect a simple night of frivolity. Oh no, my friend, this is Greek theatre, where the drama is as thick as a philosopher's beard and the political commentary sharper than a Spartan spear. First, let's set the scene, the theatre of Dionysus, an open-air marvel nestled at the foot of the Acropolis. This isn't some rinky-dink setup, it's the Broadway of the ancient world, with a seating capacity of up to 17,000. Yes, you heard that right, 17,000 Athenians packed in tighter than a jar of olives, each eager to catch the latest tragedy or comedy. It's the place to see and be seen, a mingling ground for citizens from all walks of life, except, of course, women and slaves, who get a nod only from the gods of equality. Now, as for the economics of this grand spectacle, it's a financial roller coaster that would make even a modern-day producer sweat. Putting on a play in Athens isn't just a matter of slapping some masks on actors and calling it a day. No, sir. It involves a dizzying array of expenses, starting with the chorus, those 12 to 15 singing, dancing, and, let's face it, sometimes overacting performers who can make or break a show. Funding them is no small feat. Enter the Quagos, the ancient equivalent of a rich uncle with a taste for the arts. This sponsor foots the bill for costumes, training, and those elaborate set pieces that scream, "Look at me." We're talking costs, upwards of 3,000 drachmas per play, a sum that could buy you a small fleet of triremes. But why, you ask, would anyone shell out that kind of cash for a bunch of toga-clad thespians? Simple civic pride and a shot at eternal glory. Sponsoring a successful play is like winning an Oscar, except with more laurel wreaths and fewer acceptance speeches. And let's not forget the playwrights. These are the rock stars of the ancient world. Names like Sophocles, Euripides, and Aristophanes carry weight, and not just because of their hefty scrolls of dialogue. They're the ones penning the scripts that mix myth with political satire, weaving stories that entertain and educate. It's a delicate balance, like juggling flaming torches while reciting Homer. But here's the kicker. The plays are free to attend. That's right, folks, an all-access pass to the dramatic spectacles, courtesy of the polis. The state foots the bill for admission, ensuring that every citizen, regardless of wealth, can partake in this cultural feast. It's democracy in action, Athenian style, where the only price of entry is a willingness to sit through a 2-hour monologue on the nature of hubris. Speaking of hubris, let's dive into the content of these productions. Forget your average rom-com or superhero flick. Greek theatre is where the big questions are asked. What does it mean to be human? How should we live? Why does the baker always sell stale bread? And while these themes resonate across the ages, the plays themselves are steeped in the politics of their time. Take Aristophanes, for example, the master of comedy who wielded satire like a surgeon's scalpel. His plays are less about slapstick and more about lampooning the powerful. Picture a political rally disguised as a comedy show where nothing and no one is sacred. In Lysistrata, he imagines women withholding sex to end a war. Imagine the uproar. It's a biting commentary on the futility of conflict and a nod to the untapped power of those sidelined by society. The tragedies, on the other hand, are a different beast altogether. Sophocles' Oedipus Rex isn't just about a guy with a complex, it's an exploration of fate versus free will, a philosophical smackdown that leaves audiences reeling. These plays serve as a mirror to society, reflecting the fears, hopes, and moral dilemmas of the day. They're a way for Athenians to grapple with their collective conscience, to question their leaders, and, perhaps, to find some semblance of order in the chaos of existence. Yet, even as these plays tackle the weighty issues of life, they're also a testament to the human spirit's resilience. There's a cathartic power in watching a tragedy unfold, a reminder that while life may be unpredictable, there's always a measure of control to be found in how we respond to it. It's this interplay of fate and agency that keeps audiences coming back year after year, play after play. Now, let's not gloss over the fact that Greek theatre is also a social event of epic proportions. Attending a play is as much about the spectacle on stage as it is about the gossip in the stands. It's a chance to rub elbows with your fellow citizens, to debate the merits of the latest production, and, if you're lucky, to catch a glimpse of the playwright himself. It's the ancient equivalent of a red carpet premiere, complete with the occasional drama, both on and off the stage. But while the theatre offers a taste of cultural sophistication, it's also a reminder of the societal divides that persist. The seating arrangement is a microcosm of Athenian society, with the best spots reserved for the elite and the hoi polloi relegated to the nosebleeds. It's a reflection of the hierarchies that permeate every aspect of life in Athens, where your social standing often dictates your experience of culture. As the final curtain falls and the applause echoes through the stone amphitheatre, you can't help but marvel at the power of theatre to unite, to provoke, and to inspire. It's more than just entertainment. It's a crucible of ideas, a forum for debate, and a celebration of the human condition. In the flickering torchlight, as the audience disperses and the city settles into a quieter rhythm, you realize that in Athens the stage is as vital as the agora, the academy, and the symposium. It's a place where stories come to life, where the past and present collide, and where the seeds of future thought are sown. As you leave the theatre, the night air cool against your skin, you're left with a sense of wonder at the sheer audacity of it all. Here, in this ancient city, where the marble facades whisper tales of glory and hubris, where the streets hum with the footsteps of philosophers and citizens alike, the theatre stands as a testament to the enduring power of storytelling. It's a reminder that in the grand tapestry of history, the threads of drama, politics, and culture are inextricably woven together, creating a vibrant mosaic that continues to captivate and challenge. So, as you make your way through the labyrinthine streets of Athens, the echoes of the evening's performance still resonating in your mind, you're left with the knowledge that in this city of ideas, the quest for understanding, is never truly over. The stage is set, the actors are ready, and the next act is just waiting to unfold. With each step, you carry with you the promise of new discoveries and the thrill of the unknown, ready to face whatever the Athenian night has to offer next. As you wander through the dimly lit streets of Athens, the echoes of the evening's performance still resonating in your mind, the city seems to breathe with a life of its own. The marble streets are quiet now, a stark contrast to the vibrant discussions and boisterous debates that filled the day. It's a chance to reflect on why philosophy and debate are more than mere intellectual exercises here. They're the very lifeblood of Athenian democracy. In Athens, philosophy isn't some high-minded pursuit reserved for the elite. It's as essential to the city's functioning as the Acropolis is to its skyline. You see, these debates aren't just about scoring intellectual points or showing off your rhetorical flair. They're a civic duty. In a city where every male citizen has a say in governance, being well-versed in philosophy is akin to having a voter ID card today. It's your ticket to participating in the decision-making process, to influencing the direction of the polis. Now, let's not kid ourselves into thinking that this democratic ideal is without its flaws. The reality is, this version of democracy excludes women, slaves and metics, foreigners. But within the confines of its limitations, it's a system that values the power of the spoken word, where ideas are currency and persuasion is an art form. It's like a never-ending open mic night, except the stakes are the future of the city and not just a free drink. Economically, Athens is a powerhouse in the 4th century BC, driven by its strategic location and bustling port of Piraeus. The city is a hub of trade, a melting pot of cultures and goods flowing in from every corner of the known world. This economic prosperity fuels its intellectual fervor. It's a bit like having a thriving Silicon Valley to fund your think tanks and startups. The wealth generated by trade and tribute allows Athenians the luxury to ponder life's big questions instead of laboring from dawn till dusk. But let's debunk the myth of the idyllic Greek life while we're at it. Yes, Athens is a city of philosophers and playwrights, but it's also a city of soldiers and strategists. The ever-present threat of war looms large. The Peloponnesian War is a fresh wound in the city's collective memory, a reminder that while ideas may shape the world, it's the spears and shields that protect it. Economic instability is a constant companion, with fluctuations in trade and resources threatening to upend even the most carefully laid plans. It's a bit like trying to balance a philosophical debate on a tightrope while someone keeps shaking the line. As you meander through the quiet streets, the words of the philosophers echo in your mind, timeless reminders of humanity's enduring struggles and triumphs. Take Socrates, for instance, that gadfly of Athens who famously declared, "The unexamined life is not worth living." It's a call to introspection, a challenge to look beyond the surface of things and seek deeper truths. Or consider Plato's assertion that knowledge which is acquired under compulsion obtains no hold on the mind. It's a nod to the power of curiosity and the freedom to pursue knowledge on one's own terms. And then there's Aristotle, who offers a pragmatic view of human nature, stating, "Man is by nature a political animal." It's a reminder that our need to connect, to form societies and engage in governance is hardwired into our very being. These philosophers, with their sharp insights and probing questions, remind us that even though the world has changed in countless ways since their time, the fundamental questions of existence remain unchanged. The more things change, the more they stay the same. In Athens, as in our modern world, the pursuit of knowledge, the quest for understanding, and the drive to shape the future are constants. The city's legacy is one of intellectual courage and curiosity, a testament to the power of ideas to transcend the confines of time and space. As you make your way home, the city's marble facades bathed in the soft glow of moonlight, you can't help but feel a sense of connection to this ancient world. Athens, with its vibrant debates and philosophical inquiries, reminds us that the quest for wisdom is a journey without end. It's a pursuit that unites us across the ages, a beacon that lights the way forward in our own lives. So as you close the door behind you, leaving the night and its mysteries outside, you carry with you the lessons of the day. In this city of ideas, where the past mingles with the present, you've been a part of something extraordinary. A witness to the living tapestry of history, where each thread is woven with care. each idea a brushstroke in the grand canvas of human thought. With a mind full of possibilities and a heart inspired by the legacy of Athens, you drift into sleep, ready to face the challenges of tomorrow with the wisdom of the ages by your side. You crack open your eyes to the whispers of dawn slipping through the stone walls of your home in 15th century Cusco, the heart of the Inca Empire. The air is crisp, carrying the scent of a city just beginning to stir, and today, like every day, you're living the not-so-zen life of an Inca priest. Spoiler alert, it's not all chanting and herbal teas. Nope, you're about to dive into the day headfirst, with the clock ticking and the empire counting on you. Your morning kicks off at 0:30, or in more relatable terms, just before sunrise. You're up and about before the first rays of Inti, the sun god, grace the city's impressive skyline. And speaking of Inti, he's a pretty big deal around here, so naturally you've got a packed schedule lined with rituals dedicated to him. Your first stop is Coricancha, the Temple of the Sun, glistening like it's been dipped in gold, which, fun fact, it actually has been. The walls are adorned with sheets of gold, a testament to the empire's wealth and reverence for the sun. Now, don't be fooled by the shiny facade. Your priestly life is far from leisurely. You're tasked with ensuring that everything runs as smoothly as a llama on parade. First on the agenda is the dawn ceremony. As the city's spiritual guide, you're expected to greet Inti with the kind of enthusiasm that would make a morning person look like a sloth. You're not just saying a quick hello, you're orchestrating a full-blown ritual, complete with offerings and chants. And you better bring your A-game because the entire city is counting on you to keep the sun rising and the crops growing. The Coricancha isn't just your workplace, it's the epicenter of Inca spiritual life. Here, you and your fellow priestly colleagues, all hand-picked for your supposed divine connection, perform rituals that regulate the very heartbeat of the empire. It's like being in an ancient control room where the stakes are as high as Machu Picchu itself. By the way, Cusco sits at a lofty 11,200 feet above sea level, so if you feel breathless, it's not just the pressure of your duties. As you lead the dawn ceremony, you're keenly aware of the economic and social undercurrents swirling around you. The Inca Empire, after all, is a well-oiled machine with everything from its architecture to agriculture meticulously planned. You see, your rituals aren't just spiritual fluff. They're a vital cog in the empire's grand scheme. Keeping the gods happy means keeping the empire prosperous, or so the theory goes. By mid-morning, you've already clocked in a full day's work. Your duties now lead you to various other sacred sites across Cusco. It's a bustling city, with its streets radiating out from the Coricancha like sunbeams, a testament to its status as the navel of the world, or Cusco, as the Incas proudly call it. The city's layout is an architectural marvel, meticulously planned to reflect the cosmos. You navigate these streets daily, your mind a map of sacred geometry. Around this time, you might be officiating a marriage or two, ensuring that unions are blessed by the gods. Marriage in Inca society is as much about alliances and social contracts as it is about love. Your role is to make sure that these contracts are spiritually binding, which, let's face it, is a lot of pressure for someone who didn't exactly sign up to be a celestial matchmaker. And if you thought your day might ease up after that, think again. As the afternoon sun climbs higher, you're overseeing the distribution of chicha, the sacred corn beer, to those participating in sacred festivals or community work. This isn't just about playing bartender. It's about maintaining the social fabric of Inca society. People are watching, and your ability to manage resources reflects directly on the empire's divine favor. Debunking a common myth here, being a priest doesn't mean you're living a life of luxury. You're not floating through your day on a cloud of spiritual enlightenment. There's real work, and plenty of it. The empire relies on you to perform these rituals flawlessly. There's a subtle but ever-present pressure to ensure everything goes according to plan, because if the sun doesn't shine, you know who's getting the blame. As your day unfolds, you can't help but notice the underlying pulse of politics woven through your spiritual duties. The Sapa Inca, the emperor himself, is considered the son of Inti, and maintaining his divine status keeps the political machine chugging along. Your rituals are not just religious, they're political theatre, reinforcing the emperor's divine right to rule. And in a world where divine right is law, you're performing for the highest stakes. So, while the romantic idea of a priest might involve serene meditation, the reality is a whirlwind of ceremonies, politics, and social responsibilities. You're an integral part of the machine that keeps the Inca Empire humming, and every move you make is a delicate balance between the spiritual and the pragmatic. As the shadows grow long and the day begins to wind down, you prepare for the evening rituals, knowing that tomorrow will bring another round of sacred duties, each as vital as the last. As the shadows lengthen and your mind drifts to thoughts of the next day's ceremonies, let's pivot our focus to the nitty-gritty of Cusco's 15th century economic powerhouse. Spoiler, it's not all llama wool and quinoa. As an Inca priest, your duties aren't confined to spiritual rituals. You're also a key player in the grand economic scheme of things. Yes, your job description includes more than just orchestrating sacrifices. You're also neck-deep in managing the empire's economic lifeblood. Ever wondered how the Inca Empire, sprawling across modern-day Peru, Ecuador, Bolivia, and parts of Chile, kept its gears turning without a hint of currency jingling in their pockets? The answer lies in a tribute system that would make your local tax collector blush. This system was as sophisticated as it was demanding, encompassing everything from agricultural produce to textiles and labour. And you, dear priest, are smack dab in the middle of this complex web, ensuring that the empire's coffers, or, more accurately, its storerooms, are filled to the brim. Let's break it down. The Inca economy was a well-oiled machine running on mitza, a labour tax system that required each household to contribute labour to state projects. This wasn't just any old tax. It was the backbone of the empire's infrastructure, supporting everything from road construction to agricultural terraces. Here's the kicker. Unlike today's dreaded tax season, this system was based on reciprocity. Sure, you gave your labour, but you were also entitled to protection and resources from the state. Sounds nice, right? Until you realise it's less about choice and more about obligation. Now, as a priest, you're not just a passive observer of the system, you're actively involved in its execution. You see, holy men like you wield significant power, overseeing the collection and distribution of goods, and we're talking about serious merchandise, maize, potatoes, coca leaves, and the oh-so-precious textiles, which were as good as gold in the Inca world. These goods flowed through the empire like blood through veins, sustaining a population that stretched across diverse and often harsh landscapes. The textiles, in particular, were a big deal. We're talking about finely crafted Cumbis cloth, woven with such skill that it was reserved for the elite and sometimes even used as a currency substitute. Imagine a world where your closet doubles as your bank account. The finest garments were often woven by the Akala, women specially chosen for their weaving prowess, and you, as a priest, might find yourself overseeing their production, ensuring that the gods and the Sapa Inca were suitably impressed. But let's not romanticize the life of these weavers. Sure, they were revered for their skills, but their lives were far from glamorous. Plucked from their homes, they lived in seclusion, churning out textiles for ceremonies and as offerings. It's a reminder that beneath the glittering surface of the Inca economy lay the cold, hard reality of a system that was as exploitative as it was efficient. And what about the political clout you wield? Far from being mere ceremonial figures, priests like you are crucial in maintaining the delicate balance of power. After all, the Inca Empire didn't just expand through sheer force, it relied on a network of alliances and political marriages, often brokered by the religious elite. Remember those weddings you officiated earlier? More than a few were likely strategic moves to cement alliances and ensure loyalty. You're not just a priest, you're a political operator, part of a ruling class that keeps the empire glued together. You might be wondering, why all this emphasis on tribute and labour? Why not just mint some coins, set up a market and call it a day? Well, here's a fun fact. The Incas didn't have a concept of money as we do. Instead, their economy was based on redistribution. Goods flowed from the provinces to the centre, Cusco, and were then redistributed as needed. This wasn't just about economics, it was about control. By managing resources, the Sapa Inca ensured his subjects' dependency on the state, solidifying his grip on power. And where do you fit into all this? As a priest, your role is to ensure that the gods' favour, and by extension, the prosperity of the empire, continues unabated. This means keeping a watchful eye on the tribute system, ensuring that the flow of goods remains uninterrupted. The stakes are high. A failure in the system isn't just an economic hiccup, it's a crisis of divine confidence. And in a world where the divine intersects with the political, that's not a position you want to be in. So, as you wrap up another day in the life of an Inca priest, you can't help but marvel at the intricate tapestry of religion, politics, and economy that defines your world. You're not just a spiritual guide, you're a linchpin in the machinery of one of history's greatest empires. Every ritual you perform, every tribute you oversee, contributes to the empire's grand narrative. As the sun dips below the horizon, you prepare for the evening's final rituals, aware that tomorrow will bring another round of duties. But for now, you can take a moment to reflect on your unique position in this storied civilization. You're part of a legacy that will endure long after the last stone of Cusco has crumbled, a testament to the power of faith, ambition, and the relentless pursuit of order in a world that often teeters on the brink of chaos. As the sun dips below the horizon, you prepare for the evening's final rituals, aware that tomorrow will bring another round of duties. But there's still the not-so-minor matter of lunch to navigate. And in Cusco, lunch isn't just a pit stop, it's a full-blown performance art. This isn't your grab-and-go sandwich scenario, it's more like a festival with a side of existential heavy lifting. Picture this. A communal meal where everyone from the Sapa Inca to the lowest peasant plays a part. It's like the empire's version of a potluck, but with way more rules and less potato salad. The Inca Empire, after all, thrives on order, and dining is no different. Each meal is a carefully orchestrated dance, maintaining not just the social hierarchy, but also cosmic harmony. You, dear priest, are the maestro of this cosmic symphony. Let's dive into the feast and see what's on the menu. The Inca diet is not just quinoa and potatoes, though those are certainly mainstays. It's a veritable smorgasbord of the Andean pantry. We're talking about maize, guinea pig, yes, you heard that right, and chicha, the omnipresent corn beer. And don't forget the chili peppers. The Incas liked their meals with a kick, long before hot sauce was cool. Now, you might be picturing a romantic scene of feasting under the open sky, but let's set the record straight. This is as much about obligation as it is about nutrition. Social status dictates your place at the table, literally. The Sapa Inca and his nobles don't just dine. They recline on finely crafted textiles, the kumbi cloth we've talked about, woven with such finesse they could double as royal armor. Meanwhile, the common folk have their own seating arrangements which, let's just say, involve less lounging and more sitting cross-legged on the ground. And about those guinea pigs. Sure, they sound exotic, but to the Incas, they're the equivalent of Sunday roast. These furry critters, or kui as they're known, are a staple protein source, roasted to crispy perfection. It's a far cry from the pet store window, and a reminder that culinary tastes are as much about culture as they are about survival. But it's not just about what you eat, it's how you eat it. Meals are communal affairs, a social glue binding the empire together. It's a chance for the Sapa Inca to demonstrate his benevolence, distributing food as a symbol of his divine right. And for you, the priest, it's an opportunity to ensure that the gods remain pleased, the cosmic order maintained. After all, a well-fed populace is a content populace, and there's no quicker route to divine disfavor than an empty stomach. Here's a fun fact. The Incas didn't have plates or utensils as we do. Instead, meals were served on large flat stones, and everyone dug in with their hands. It's a tactile experience, connecting diners not just to their food, but to each other. And while this might sound like a 5-year-old's birthday party, it's actually a sophisticated social ritual. You see, food isn't just sustenance, it's a statement. And speaking of statements, let's talk about chicha. This sacred corn beer is more than just a beverage, it's a symbol of unity and strength. Made from fermented maize, it's consumed in vast quantities, especially during festivals and communal meals. As a priest, you're often in charge of its distribution, ensuring that everyone gets their fair share. But be warned, this isn't a casual drink, it's potent stuff, more akin to moonshine than a light lager. One too many cups, and you might find yourself contemplating the cosmos a bit more intimately than intended. Now, let's debunk a myth or two. While the notion of Inca feasting might conjure images of opulence and abundance, the reality is more nuanced. Sure, there's plenty of food, But there are also plenty of rules. Meals are a reflection of the strict social hierarchy, with each person's portion and position meticulously dictated by their status. It's less a free-for-all and more a carefully choreographed ballet, with each dancer knowing their precise place in the routine. And beneath this culinary choreography lies the ever-present spectre of obligation. Participation in communal meals isn't optional, it's a duty. Each bite is a reaffirmation of one's place in the social order, a tangible reminder of the empire's reach. Even the act of eating becomes a political statement, a testament to the Sapa Inca's control over his subjects' lives. So, while the romantic image of a grand feast persists, it's crucial to recognize the strings attached. Food is a tool of governance, a means of reinforcing power structures. And you, as a priest, are a key player in this gastronomic Game of Thrones, ensuring that each meal serves its dual purpose, nourishment and social cohesion. As the meal winds down and the echoes of laughter fade, you can't help but reflect on the intricate dance of power and politics that defines your world. In Cusco, every bite is a reminder of the empire's might, every sip a pledge of loyalty. And as you prepare to resume your duties, you know that tomorrow will bring another round of sacred meals, each as meaningful as the last. In this delicate balance of food and faith, you're not just a priest, you're a guardian of the cosmic order, a linchpin in the empire's grand tapestry. Every meal you oversee, every morsel you bless, is a testament to the enduring power of tradition and the relentless pursuit of harmony in a world where chaos is never far away. And as the stars begin to twinkle above the city, you find solace in the knowledge that you're part of something far greater than yourself. A legacy that will endure long after the last echoes of Cusco have faded into history. As the stars twinkle over Cusco, you're not kicking back to watch the celestial show. Nope, it's time to roll up those sleeves and dive into the spiritual duties that define your existence. The afternoon sun casts long shadows on Coricancha, signaling that it's time for the serious business of religion, Inca style. Forget about leisurely chanting. You're gearing up for a series of sacred ceremonies that make a rock concert lineup look like child's play. First up, offerings and divinations are the main course on today's spiritual menu. These aren't your garden variety sacrifices. We're talking about rituals that are as intricate as a Machu Picchu staircase. You see, in the Inca world, keeping the gods happy is more than just a job. It's a high-stakes game of cosmic chess. And every move you make is scrutinized by both the divine and the earthly powers. Let's start with the offerings. Now, you might think of sacrifices as a gory business, but the Incas had a more nuanced approach. Sure, there were animal sacrifices, and yes, sometimes even human ones, but offerings were often symbolic gestures aimed at currying favor with the divine. The most common offerings included food, textiles, and the all-important chicha. Picture this. You're standing before a sacred altar, arms laden with goods, making sure that not a single item is out of place. Every offering is a calculated move, meant to ensure that the gods keep the empire's wheels turning. And speaking of wheels, let's talk logistics. Coordinating these offerings is like organizing a party where the guest of honor is a deity with a penchant for high standards. Each item has to be perfect, from the gleaming maize kernels to the precisely woven Cumbies cloth. You're not just offering goods, you're presenting tokens of the empire's wealth and devotion. Think of it as the Inca equivalent of sending a well-curated gift basket to your divine overlord. Now, on to divinations. This isn't your average fortune-telling session. It's a deep dive into the cosmic ether, seeking guidance on everything from agricultural cycles to military campaigns. As a priest, you're expected to read signs in everything from the flight patterns of birds to the entrails of sacrificial animals. Yes, you heard that right, Guts. The Incas believed that the divine will was written in the entrails, and interpreting these signs was your job. It's a messy business, but someone's got to do it. Imagine crouching over a sacrificial llama, scrutinizing its innards like a scroll from the divine library. It's intense, to say the least, and the pressure to get it right is palpable. One wrong interpretation, and you could be the reason the sun doesn't rise tomorrow, or worse, you might find yourself on the receiving end of some serious side-eye from the Sapa Inca himself. No pressure, right? But why all the fuss over these rituals, you ask? Well, here's the thing. In the Inca Empire, spirituality is intertwined with politics and economics in a way that would make today's political strategists envious. The success of your rituals isn't just about divine favor, it's about maintaining the empire's stability. A well-executed ceremony can mean a bountiful harvest or a victorious battle, while a botched one spells disaster. The stakes are sky high, with the future of the empire hanging in the balance. Now, let's debunk some myths. While the romantic image of a serene priest communing with the cosmos might be appealing, the reality is far grittier. The pressure to achieve ritual success is immense, and failure isn't just frowned upon, it's catastrophic. If the crops fail or the rains don't come, you're not just out of a job, you're potentially out of a head. The consequences of failure are as harsh as the Andean winters, and there's no room for error. But let's not get too bleak. Despite the pressures, there's a certain allure to the spiritual life. You're at the heart of an empire, a key player in the grand cosmic drama that defines Inca society. Every chant, every offering, every divination is a thread in the tapestry of history, weaving together past, present, and future in a dance as intricate as the stars above. And speaking of stars, let's not forget the celestial element of your duties. The Incas were keen astronomers, using the night sky as a guide for everything from agriculture to spirituality. As a priest, you're expected to interpret these cosmic signals, ensuring that the empire remains in harmony with the universe. It's a heady responsibility, one that demands not just knowledge, but intuition and insight. Now's a good time to mention a little something about those human sacrifices. While it might sound like the stuff of nightmares, human sacrifice in the Inca world was a rare and highly ceremonial affair, reserved for only the most significant events. These sacrifices, known as capricocha, were meant to appease the gods in times of crisis or to mark important occasions. The chosen few were often children, considered pure and untainted, and the rituals surrounding their sacrifice were elaborate and deeply spiritual. But let's be clear, this isn't about glorifying the practice. It's a stark reminder of the lengths to which the Incas would go to ensure their gods' favor. It's a testament to the complex interplay of faith, fear, and the relentless pursuit of order that defined Inca society. And as you stand at the altar, preparing for another ritual, you can feel the weight of history pressing down on you, a reminder of the delicate balance between the spiritual and the temporal. So, as the afternoon shadows lengthen and the city of Cusco settles into an evening rhythm, you find yourself reflecting on the intricate dance of power, faith, and duty that defines your world. You're not just a priest, you're a guardian of the cosmic order, a linchpin in the empire's grand tapestry. Every ritual you perform, every offering you present, is a testament to the enduring power of tradition and the relentless pursuit of harmony in a world where chaos is ever lurking. And as you prepare for the evening's final ceremonies, you know that tomorrow will bring another round of duties, each as vital as the last. But for now, you can take a moment to marvel at the intricate web of religion, politics, and economy that defines your existence. You're part of a legacy that will endure long after the last stones of Cusco have crumbled, a testament to the power of faith, ambition, and the relentless pursuit of order in a world that often teeters on the brink of chaos. As the evening ceremonies wrap up and the night air settles over Cusco like a velvet cloak, you find yourself pondering the broader implications of your role as an Inca priest. Here you are, standing at the intersection of the celestial and the mortal, a bridge between the gods and the people, with the weight of an empire resting squarely on your ceremonial shoulders. It's not just about keeping the sun on its daily commute across the sky or ensuring the maize grows tall and golden. It's about the intricate dance of power, belief, and ritual that defines this vast empire. The Inca religious practices, like the empire itself, are a marvel of organization and complexity, a system that would make a Swiss watchmaker nod in approval. Let's talk about legacy. The Incas, with their penchant for grandiosity and order, have left an indelible mark on subsequent cultures. Even if their empire was relatively short-lived, conquered by the Spanish in the early 16th century after less than a century of imperial dominance. But their influence? Oh, that's another story. Their architectural wonders, like Machu Picchu, still draw awe from around the globe, while their agricultural techniques continue to inspire sustainable farming practices today. And you, as a priest, were part of the engine that drove this legacy. Your rituals and ceremonies weren't just spiritual fluff. They were the glue holding the social and political fabric together, a testament to the power of belief in shaping human history. Now, let's not sugarcoat it. Being an Inca priest was no walk in the sacred garden. Sure, the romantic notion of a wise spiritual guide communing with the divine sounds appealing, but the reality was often a relentless grind of duty, expectation, and, yes, fear. Fear of divine displeasure, fear of political repercussions, fear of being the weak link in an empire that demanded perfection. The pressure to maintain the cosmic balance was immense, and the consequences of failure could be as brutal as an Andean winter. Human sacrifices? Anyone? Yet, despite the harsh realities, there's something undeniably compelling about the Inca religious system. It's an intricate tapestry woven from threads of faith, power, and survival, each ritual a thread holding the empire together. The romantic allure lies in the grandeur of the vision, a society striving to align itself with the cosmos, believing that every chant, every offering, every ceremony was a step towards harmony with the universe. It's a vision that resonates even today as we grapple with our own existential questions and the relentless march of progress. In terms of legacy, the Inca religious practices have left an indelible mark on the world. Their emphasis on reciprocity and community, the idea that everyone has a role to play in maintaining the cosmic order, continues to influence Andean cultures today. The festival of Inti Raymi, for instance, is still celebrated every year in Cusco, a vibrant testament to the enduring power of Inca traditions. It's a reminder that while empires may fall, the ideas and beliefs they leave behind can echo through the ages, shaping the lives of those who come after. And what about the cost of maintaining such a complex religious system? It's a question that lingers, a shadow cast by the dazzling light of Inca achievements. The labor and resources required to sustain the rituals, the sacrifices demanded by the gods, the rigid social hierarchy, all of these came at a price. For the common people, the demands of tribute and labor were relentless, their lives dictated by the needs of the empire. It's a stark reminder that behind the glittering facade of Inca glory lay a system that was as demanding as it was awe-inspiring. As you stand on the threshold of another day, you can't help but reflect on the intricate dance of history, the way in which belief and power intertwine to shape the world. You're not just a priest, you're a participant in a grand cosmic drama, a story that stretches back into the mists of time and forward into the future. It's a legacy that will endure long after the last stone of Cusco has crumbled, a testament to the power of faith, ambition, and the relentless pursuit of order in a world that often teeters on the brink of chaos. And so, as you prepare to leave the sacred precincts for the night, you take a moment to look up at the stars, marveling at their eternal dance. They remind you of your place in the universe, a small but vital part of a much larger story. The legacy of the Incas, and your role within it, is a reminder of the enduring power of belief to shape the world, a testament to the resilience of the human spirit in the face of the unknown. In the end, the story of the Inca priests, like all great stories, is one of contrast and complexity. It's a story of ambition and sacrifice, of power and faith, of the relentless pursuit of order in a world filled with uncertainty. And as you close your eyes, drifting into the realm of dreams, you carry with you the knowledge that you are part of a legacy that will echo through the ages, a testament to the enduring power of the human spirit to seek meaning and purpose in a world that is both beautiful and terrifying. In the aftermath of World War II, Britain was a bit like a dinner party gone wrong. Ration coupons swapped for dessert forks, and everyone pretending not to notice how cold it was without coal. Into this landscape of austerity and stiff upper lips entered a woman who would eventually iron out more than just her own shirts, Margaret Thatcher. Born in 1925 in Grantham, Lincolnshire, Thatcher wasn't exactly handed a silver spoon. Her father, Alfred Roberts, ran a grocery store, and if there's anything that moulds a young mind for politics, it's probably weighing potatoes while discussing fiscal policy with customers. Margaret wasn't your average kid, unless your average kid spends weekends at the local Conservative Party meetings. While her peers were likely more interested in cricket scores, young Margaret was busy absorbing the cut and thrust of political debate. Her passion for politics was matched by a keen interest in chemistry. In fact, she went on to study the subject at Somerville College, Oxford, graduating with a Bachelor of Science degree in 1947. Now, chemistry might not seem the most obvious precursor to a political career, but in Margaret's world, understanding the periodic table was just as crucial as understanding parliamentary procedure. After all, both involve complex reactions and the occasional explosion. Post-war Britain was a place of economic gloom and doom, with national debt skyrocketing to around 240% of GDP. The Labour government, led by Clement Attlee, was busy nationalising industries faster than you could say public ownership, while the NHS was born to cries of both joy and horror. It was a time of stark choices, and Thatcher, a woman of stark choices herself, had her sights set on the male-dominated bastion of the Conservative Party. Her first attempt to break in wasn't exactly smooth. Think of trying to crack a safe with a rubber spoon. Her first foray into parliamentary elections was in 1950, when she ran as the Conservative candidate for the Labour stronghold of Dartford. At just 24, she was the youngest female candidate in the country. Did she win? Not even close. But she did manage to slash the Labour majority by 6,000 votes, which is no small feat when you're up against politicians who've been in the game longer than you've been alive. And yes, she did those interviews with her shirts crisply ironed, a detail that might seem trivial but speaks volumes about her meticulous nature. Ironing shirts for interviews was just Thatcher's way of saying, "I'm serious about this, and I look good doing it." The 1950s were a time when the concept of a female MP was as alien as a left-handed handshake. Yet Thatcher was determined to crash through that glass ceiling, or at least give it a good shatter with her handbag. The Conservative Party itself was undergoing a transformation, adjusting its policies to appeal to a wider electorate, a process that was as painful as wearing shoes, 2 sizes too small. Thatcher fit right into this evolving narrative, ready to pound the pavement and the policies with equal fervour. By 1951, Margaret had met and married Dennis Thatcher, a businessman who was more than happy to support her political ambitions. He was the kind of husband who didn't mind playing second fiddle, which was just as well since Margaret's ambitions were firmly in the driver's seat. Their marriage was a partnership that allowed Thatcher the freedom to pursue her career while Dennis took care of the home front. It was a dynamic that worked, proving that behind every great woman is a man holding the shopping bags. Thatcher's big break came in 1959 when she was elected MP for Finchley, a safe Conservative seat in North London. It was a victory that marked the beginning of a political career that would eventually see her become the first female Prime Minister of the United Kingdom. But let's not jump the gun. In 1959, she was just one of 25 female MPs in the House of Commons, a number that made one wonder if they held meetings in a broom cupboard. Her election win wasn't just a personal triumph, it was a sign of the changing times. The post-war generation was beginning to question the status quo, and Thatcher was there to provide answers, even if they weren't the ones people wanted to hear. Her approach was grounded in reality, with a no-nonsense attitude that resonated with a public weary of empty promises. Thatcher's early political career was a balancing act of ambition and pragmatism. She was a woman who knew what she wanted and wasn't afraid to go after it, regardless of the hurdles in her way. Whether it was ironing shirts for interviews or tackling the economic challenges of post-war Britain, Margaret Thatcher was a force to be reckoned with from the very start. Her journey from a grocer's daughter to a parliamentary powerhouse is a testament to her determination, her intellect, and her refusal to accept anything less than what she believed was possible. As Thatcher settled into her role as MP for Finchley, the political landscape was as turbulent as a London fog, thick, unpredictable, and with a tendency to obscure the path ahead. The 1960s and 70s in Britain were an era marked by economic strife, labour strikes, and a musical invasion by the likes of the Beatles. But while others were grooving to rock and roll, Thatcher was fine-tuning her own political symphony. The road to becoming the Conservative Party's leader in 1975 was anything but smooth. It was more like climbing Everest in high heels. Challenging, but with Thatcher, nothing was impossible. The political environment was a veritable minefield of tradition and resistance to change. The Tories were accustomed to a male-dominated hierarchy where leadership was as much about pedigree as it was about policy. Yet Margaret Thatcher, with her unyielding determination and razor-sharp intellect, was about to rewrite that rulebook. Let's not sugarcoat it, the Conservative Party of the 70s was in crisis. Edward Heath's leadership had left the party in the doldrums after losing 2 general elections in 1974. Heath, with his stern demeanour and opposition to reform, wasn't exactly the life of the party. Thatcher, on the other hand, saw an opportunity where others saw only obstacles. She was a master of strategy, understanding that politics was as much about timing as it was about talent. Her ascent to leadership was like a perfectly choreographed dance, albeit one performed on a political tightrope. Thatcher knew she needed to secure the backing of key party members, and she did so with the precision of a chess grandmaster. Her campaign was meticulously planned, with support from the dry faction of the party, those who favoured free market policies and less government intervention. They saw in Thatcher a kindred spirit, someone who could steer the party away from the disastrous economic policies of the past. Of course, Thatcher's rise wasn't just about her political acumen. It was also about the changing tides of society. The 1970s were a time when traditional gender roles were being questioned, if not entirely overturned. The feminist movement was gaining momentum, and Thatcher, whether she intended to or not, became a symbol of female empowerment. She wasn't marching in protests or burning bras, but her very presence in the male-dominated world of politics was a statement in itself. Now, let's talk about the Iron Lady persona, a nickname that clung to Thatcher like cat hair on a dark sweater. In 1976, a Soviet journalist, intending to criticize her anti-Soviet rhetoric, dubbed her the Iron Lady. What was meant as an insult was quickly embraced by Thatcher and her supporters as a badge of honour. It was a masterstroke of rebranding. She turned perceived criticism into a symbol of strength and resilience, embodying the no-nonsense leadership style that would define her premiership. However, the myth of the Iron Lady sometimes obscures the practical realities of her rise. Thatcher was not an indomitable force of nature from the get-go. She was a politician who knew the value of compromise and strategy. Her leadership campaign was not about bulldozing through opposition, but about building alliances and carefully navigating the political landscape. She understood that to win over the party, she had to appeal to both the traditionalists and the reformers, a balancing act that required both finesse and fortitude. Thatcher's election as leader of the Conservative Party in February 1975 was a watershed moment, not only because she was the first woman to lead a major political party in the UK, but because it signalled a shift in the party's direction. Her victory was not just a personal triumph, it was a harbinger of the seismic changes that were to come. She promised to cut through the economic malaise that had gripped the country and to restore Britain's standing on the global stage. The political climate she inherited was one of economic stagnation, with inflation hovering around 25% and unemployment rates climbing steadily. The British economy was the proverbial sinking ship, and Thatcher was determined to be the captain who would steer it to safety. It was a daunting task, but if there's one thing Thatcher had in spades, it was tenacity. She was prepared to make the hard decisions, even if they were unpopular. Her belief in free market principles and individual enterprise was unwavering, and she was ready to implement these ideas on a national scale. Beneath the Iron Lady's steely exterior lay a complex political strategist, one who understood the importance of image and perception. She was a master at using the media to her advantage, crafting a public persona that was both formidable and charismatic. Thatcher knew that in politics, as in life, perception often trumps reality. Her speeches were carefully crafted, her appearances meticulously planned, all designed to reinforce her image as a decisive and capable leader. But let's not pretend it was all smooth sailing. Thatcher faced considerable opposition, both within and outside her party. Many doubted her ability to lead, questioning whether a woman could handle the pressures of political leadership. Yet Thatcher, with her trademark resolve, relished the challenge. She was, after all, a trailblazer, and trailblazers are never deterred by naysayers. Her rise to power was a testament to her strategic brilliance and her ability to adapt to the changing political landscape. Thatcher was not just a product of her time, she was a force that shaped it. She was a leader who understood the power of conviction, the necessity of compromise, and the importance of timing. Her journey to the top wasn't merely about breaking the glass ceiling, it was about redefining what it meant to be a leader in a world that was reluctant to embrace change. As we continue to unravel the complexities of Thatcher's political career, it's crucial to recognise both the myth and the reality of her leadership. The Iron Lady persona, while captivating, was only one facet of a multifaceted leader. Thatcher's true legacy lies not only in her audacious climb to power, but in the indelible impact she left on the political and economic fabric of Britain. Stay tuned as we explore how she wielded that power and the changes, both celebrated and contentious, that followed. As Thatcher took the helm, the British economy was like a leaky ship battered by storms of inflation and unemployment. The Iron Lady had her work cut out for her, and she was ready to wield her political blowtorch to reshape the economic landscape of the 1980s. Her blueprint? A heady cocktail of privatisation, tax reforms, and a firm belief in the free market's magic wand. First on the Thatcherite agenda was privatisation, the process of selling off state-owned enterprises as if they were going out of fashion. Think of it like a national garage sale. Everything must go. British Telecom, British Gas, British Airways, you name it, they slapped a price tag on it. By the end of her tenure, around $29 billion had been raised from privatising over 50 companies. Supporters saw this as capitalism's triumphant march, while critics likened it to putting family heirlooms on eBay. Tax reform was another cornerstone of Thatcher's economic strategy. She slashed the top rate of income tax from 83% to 60%, and later to 40%, under the economic philosophy that putting more money in the hands of the wealthy would somehow lead to prosperity trickling down to the rest of the populace. It's the champagne pyramid theory, where the bubbles of wealth would eventually reach the bottom tiers of society. However, the reality was often more like a leaky tap than a champagne fountain. Public reaction to these policies ranged from enthusiastic applause to outrage and head-scratching bewilderment. Thatcher had her fair share of admirers who saw her as a saviour of the British economy, while others were less enamoured, viewing her as a harbinger of greed and inequality. The humour of the time reflected this divide. Stand-up comics and cartoonists had a field day, portraying Thatcher as everything from a stern headmistress to a heartless villain. Yet, for all the jokes, the policies were no laughing matter for many Britons. The grittier side of Thatcher's economic revolution was marked by strikes and soaring unemployment. Whole industries were put through the economic ringer, with manufacturing hit particularly hard. Unemployment figures soared, reaching over 3 million in 1982, the highest since the Great Depression. Communities in industrial heartlands felt the brunt, with ghost towns emerging in areas once bustling with factory life. The miners' strike of 1984-85 became emblematic of the era's discord. It pitted the National Union of Mine Workers against the government in a bitter confrontation that was less about coal and more about power, pride and survival. The strike was a national drama, a clash of titans with Thatcher cast as the unyielding nemesis of union power. In the midst of all this, Thatcher's government was accused of being callous, indifferent to the struggles of ordinary people. The term Thatcherism itself became a shorthand for ruthless efficiency and economic Darwinism, where only the fittest survived. Yet, the irony was that while Thatcher was a champion of individual enterprise, her policies led to increasing dependence on welfare by those left behind in the economic upheaval. It was a paradox, wrapped in a contradiction, served with a side of austerity. But let's not forget the mythic allure of Thatcher's policies. To many, she was the embodiment of a new Britain, shaking off the dust of post-war decline and stepping into the bright lights of modernity. Her vision of a property-owning democracy, where every Briton could own a piece of the pie, was tantalising. The right-to-buy scheme, introduced in 1980, allowed council tenants to purchase their homes at discounted prices. By 1987, over 1 million homes had been sold, creating a generation of homeowners and altering the social fabric of Britain. It was a policy that resonated with the aspirational spirit of the time, even as it was criticised for depleting the stock of affordable housing. Thatcher's economic policies were not just about numbers and balance sheets, they were deeply entwined with the social and cultural currents of the era. The 1980s were a time of conspicuous consumption and financial excess, symbolised by the rise of the yuppie young urban professionals with a penchant for designer suits and fast cars. The era's soundtrack wasn't just synth-pop and glam rock, it was the clinking of champagne glasses in the City of London, where financial markets thrived in a deregulated environment. Thatcher's Big Bang of 1986 revolutionized the London Stock Exchange, turning it into a global financial powerhouse. It was a move that underscored her commitment to free market principles, but also one that widened the gap between the financial elite and the rest of society. Yet, despite the economic turbulence and social divides, Thatcher managed to stay politically afloat, buoyed by a robust foreign policy and a knack for political theatre. Her staunch opposition to Soviet communism and her relationship with the US under President Reagan played well on the world stage. The Falklands War in 1982, a swift and decisive victory against Argentina, bolstered her domestic standing and reinforced her image as a resolute leader. As the 1980s marched on, the legacy of Thatcher's economic policies remained a subject of heated debate. Was she the architect of modern Britain or the destroyer of its social fabric? The truth, as always, lies somewhere in between. Thatcherism was neither the unqualified success its proponents claimed, nor the unmitigated disaster its detractors believed. It was a complex, multifaceted era of transformation that left an indelible mark on British society. As we venture further into Thatcher's political journey, remember that the story is far from over. The economic and social changes she set in motion would continue to unfold long after her departure from office. Stay tuned as we delve deeper into the Thatcher years, exploring the triumphs and tribulations of a leader who defined an era, for better or for worse. With Thatcher's domestic policy setting the stage, let's swivel the spotlight to her foreign policy prowess, which often played out like an international chess game. With Thatcher as the Queen, of course. Enter the Falklands War of 1982, where Thatcher's decisiveness was tested on a global scale. Picture this: a group of islands in the South Atlantic, more sheep than people, become the unlikely focal point of a geopolitical showdown. The Falklands, claimed by Argentina yet under British control, were suddenly the hottest real estate on the planet. When Argentina invaded, most Brits probably had to haul out a map to figure out where the Falklands were. But to Thatcher, the invasion was a direct challenge to British sovereignty and, more importantly, her resolve. In a move that would make even the most seasoned gambler sweat, she dispatched a naval task force 8,000 miles south. The logistical feats alone were mind-boggling. Imagine coordinating an armada that had to sail halfway around the world. It's like trying to coordinate a flash mob, but with destroyers and aircraft carriers. Thatcher's decision to go to war wasn't just about a few islands. It was about sending a message that Britain was not to be trifled with. And it worked. The swift victory, achieved in just 74 days, sent her approval rating soaring from a mere 25% to over 50%. It was a PR coup that rebranded her as a global powerhouse. Yet, as much as the media loved the narrative of the Iron Lady standing tall, the war had its critics. Some questioned the necessity of the conflict, pointing out its cost, both financial and human. The war cost Britain an estimated $2.778 billion, and 25 British servicemen lost their lives. The romanticised image of Thatcher as the fearless leader glossed over these gritty realities. Now, let's shift our gaze across the Atlantic to her complex relationship with President Ronald Reagan. If there ever was a political bromance, this was it, albeit one with its fair share of awkward moments. Thatcher and Reagan shared a fondness for free market economics and a disdain for Soviet communism. But their alliance wasn't all sunshine and roses. Picture two leaders who seemed to be cut from the same ideological cloth, yet occasionally found themselves at odds, like an old married couple bickering over who left the toaster plugged in. Their camaraderie was the stuff of legend. The media often portrayed them as ideological soulmates, with Thatcher famously quipping that Reagan was the second most important man in my life. But behind the scenes, there were disagreements. Take the 1983 US invasion of Grenada, for instance. Thatcher was livid. Britain learned about the invasion from the news, and to say she was rattled would be an understatement. It was a diplomatic faux pas that strained their relationship, yet the two managed to smooth things over, demonstrating the resilience of their alliance. Reagan and Thatcher's partnership extended to the Cold War's tense theatre. In the grand geopolitical chess match, Thatcher was the faithful ally, backing Reagan's hardline stance against the Soviet Union. Her hawkish policies aligned with Reagan's, but she also understood the complexity of the situation. She wasn't just Reagan's sidekick, she was a shrewd strategist who knew when to hold the line and when to extend an olive branch. Thatcher's approach wasn't just about sabre-rattling. She also supported arms reduction, which paved the way for the Intermediate-Range Nuclear Forces Treaty in 1987. The media's portrayal of Thatcher as a global powerhouse was as much about perception as it was about policy. Her image as the Iron Lady was carefully cultivated, yet beneath the steely exterior was a politician who understood the art of diplomacy. Thatcher wasn't just a one-note leader. She was a symphony of strategic moves, each calculated to reinforce Britain's position on the world stage. Her foreign policy was a balancing act of strength and pragmatism. While she was unyielding in her stance against communism, she was also open to dialogue. Thatcher's 1984 visit to China to negotiate the future of Hong Kong is a case in point. It was a diplomatic dance that required finesse, and she managed to secure an agreement that allowed for a one-country, two-systems framework. It was a testament to her ability to navigate complex international waters, even if the long-term implications of that agreement remain contentious to this day. In her interactions with other global leaders, Thatcher's directness was both her hallmark and her Achilles' heel. She wasn't one to mince words, and that candour sometimes ruffled feathers. Yet, it was this very quality that earned her respect on the international stage. She was a leader who called it as she saw it, whether she was speaking to allies or adversaries. Her relationship with Soviet leader Mikhail Gorbachev is a prime example. Thatcher famously declared that she could do business with him, a sentiment that laid the groundwork for thawing Cold War tensions. Behind the public facade of diplomacy, there were moments of levity and tension that the cameras never captured. Thatcher's interactions with world leaders were filled with candid exchanges, some of which became the stuff of diplomatic lore. Whether it was trading barbs with French President François Mitterrand or navigating the intricacies of US-UK relations, Thatcher's foreign policy was as much about personal relationships as it was about geopolitical strategy. Yet, for all her global successes, Thatcher's foreign policy legacy is a mixed bag. Her unwavering support for apartheid South Africa's government drew criticism and protests at home and abroad. Her reluctance to impose economic sanctions against the regime was seen by many as a moral failing, a blind spot in her otherwise sharp political vision. It was a stance that tarnished her reputation as a champion of freedom and democracy, highlighting the complexities and contradictions of her leadership. As we round off this exploration of Thatcher's foreign policy, it's crucial to see her not just as the Iron Lady, but as a leader who navigated a world in flux with a combination of resolve, pragmatism, and occasional missteps. The Falklands War, her bromance with Reagan, and her complex global dealings were all part of a tapestry that defined her era. But don't hang up your history hat just yet, there's more to unravel. The Thatcher years were far from over, and the legacy of her international endeavours would continue to ripple across the globe. Stay tuned as the narrative of Margaret Thatcher unfolds further in the final act of her storied political career. As the Thatcher years continued to roll on, the Iron Lady's domestic agenda began to face trials that even her trademark resolve couldn't quite navigate. By the late 1980s, the political landscape was shifting under her feet like an unexpected earthquake at a tea party. Thatcher's policies, once the toast of the town, were now increasingly viewed as a double-edged sword. The economy had stabilised, sure, but at what cost? The social fabric of Britain was fraying, with widening inequality and public discontent bubbling like a pot left too long on the stove. In 1989, Thatcher introduced the community charge, popularly known as the poll tax, a flat-rate tax intended to replace local rates based on property values. The idea was to make local government more accountable to the people. After all, nothing says democracy like everyone paying the same tax rate, right? But here's the kicker. The poll tax was about as popular as a skunk at a garden party. The public's reaction was swift and furious. The tax's flat rate meant that a billionaire paid the same as a struggling single mother, sparking protests that made headlines worldwide. In March 1990, over 200,000 people took to the streets of London in the infamous poll tax riots, and the capital looked more like a scene from a dystopian novel than the heart of one of the world's great democracies. Thatcher's unyielding stance on the tax highlighted a growing disconnect between her government and the populace. Her party, once united under her banner, began to show signs of rebellion. Thatcher's cabinet, a collection of once loyal acolytes, started to question her judgment. It was like a Shakespearean drama unfolding in the halls of Westminster, with whispers of dissent growing louder by the day. The Conservative Party, which had ridden high on the Thatcher way for over a decade, was now questioning whether its captain was steering them towards rocky shores. The final nail in the coffin, however, was not the domestic unrest, but the shifting sands of Europe. Thatcher's scepticism towards European integration was well known, but the European issue was like an elephant in the room that refused to be ignored. The European Economic Community was moving towards greater integration, and Thatcher's vocal opposition to this was at odds with many in her own party who saw the future of Britain entwined with Europe. Her famous "No, no, no" speech in the House of Commons in October 1990, where she rejected greater political union in Europe, was met with applause from some quarters, but was the last straw for others. By November 1990, Thatcher's position had become untenable. Her deputy, Geoffrey Howe, resigned with a blistering speech that was more like a verbal boxing match than a political address. Howe's resignation was the bell tolling the end of an era. It was a catalyst for the leadership challenge that would see Thatcher's political downfall. Her former protégé, Michael Heseltine, challenged her leadership, and while Thatcher won the first ballot, the margin was not enough to avoid a second vote. Realising that she had lost the support of her party, Thatcher resigned on November 22, 1990, after more than 11 years as Prime Minister. It was a political exit that combined the grandeur of a royal abdication with the drama of a soap opera finale. Thatcher's resignation marked the end of a tumultuous era, but her legacy was far from over. Her policies had fundamentally reshaped Britain, for better or worse, depending on whom you asked. The privatisation spree had created a more dynamic economy, but it also left a legacy of inequality and social division. Her economic policies had tamed inflation and revitalised the financial sector, yet they had also led to the decline of traditional industries and communities. It was a paradox that Thatcher herself embodied, a leader who believed in individual enterprise, yet whose policies led to increased dependence on the state for many. Post-politics. Thatcher's life took on a quieter rhythm, though she never fully retreated from the public eye. She published her memoirs, The Downing Street Years, in 1993, offering her side of the story with a characteristic blend of candour and self-assurance. The book sold like hotcakes, proving that even out of office, the Iron Lady could still command attention. She continued to deliver speeches and engage in public life, though her influence gradually waned as the years passed. One of the enduring myths surrounding Thatcher was that she was a lone warrior, a mythic figure who single-handedly reshaped Britain. The reality, however, is that politics is never a solo act. Thatcher was a leader supported by a network of allies and advisers, a political landscape that she navigated with both brilliance and blunder. Her legacy is a testament to the power of conviction and the complexities of leadership in a world that is rarely black and white. The Thatcher years left an indelible mark on Britain and the world. Her brand of politics, often dubbed Thatcherism, became a blueprint for conservative movements across the globe. Yet her legacy is as contested as it is celebrated. For some, she is the saviour of the British economy, a trailblazer who shattered the glass ceiling and redefined what it meant to be a leader. For others, she is a symbol of division, whose policies widened the gap between the rich and the poor and dismantled the social safety net. In the end, Thatcher's story is a tapestry of contradictions, a blend of triumph and controversy, much like the woman herself. Her legacy is not just in the policies she implemented, but in the debates she ignited, debates that continue to shape the political discourse today. The Iron Lady may have left the stage, but her impact resonates still, a testament to the enduring power of political ideas and the leaders who champion them. So, as we close the book on Margaret Thatcher's storied career, let's remember her not as a myth or a villain, but as a complex figure who navigated the turbulent waters of 20th century politics with a tenacity that few could match. Whether you see her as a hero or a harbinger of change, one thing is certain: Thatcher's legacy is as unyielding as the woman herself. Now, isn't that something to ponder as you drift off into a sleep filled with visions of power suits and political intrigue? If roads could talk, the Incan highways would have tales to spin that could make a modern interstate blush. Spanning a colossal 25,000 miles, the Incan road network was the Google Maps of the 15th century, minus the annoying GPS voice. And here's the kicker. These paths were engineered with nary a wheel in sight. That's right, no cars, no bikes, not even a sad little unicycle, just feet, hooves, and a whole lot of determination. The Incan roads weren't just about getting from point A to point B. They were the nervous system of an empire that spread across the rugged terrain of the Andes, stretching over diverse climates and topographies, from scorching deserts to freezing highlands. This network connected the vast empire from Quito in the north to Santiago in the south, stitching together an area that covered nearly 770,000 square miles. For context, that's like trying to connect New York City to Los Angeles, but with mountains, jungles, and no Wi-Fi. The Incas were masterful architects, using stone, dirt, and a deep understanding of their harsh landscape to create roads that could withstand the test of time, and a fair amount of earthquakes. These roads had engineering features that would impress even the most jaded city planner today. They constructed retaining walls, drainage systems, and steps to keep the roads stable and navigable. Talk about foresight. Remember, this was a time when some folks still thought the earth was flat, but let's not forget the political genius behind this feat. The Incas weren't just paving roads for the heck of it. These paths were the lifeblood of their empire, unifying disparate cultures and languages under one banner. They facilitated trade, communication, and control, allowing the Sapa Inca, think of him as the CEO of the Inca Empire, to maintain a firm grip over his expansive territory. It was a logistical dream, or maybe a nightmare, depending on which side of the empire you were on. As for the workforce, who needs bulldozers when you've got a work crew of thousands? The Incas employed mita, a labor tax where citizens contributed work instead of currency. This system was as much about building infrastructure as it was about solidifying the emperor's power. The roads served a dual purpose, binding the empire together and keeping it under the watchful eye of the Inca elite. There's nothing like a good road to remind you who's in charge. And then there were the Chasqui, the ancient equivalent of express mail couriers. These runners were the Usain Bolts of the Andes, darting across the empire with messages tied to their backs. They could cover up to 150 miles a day, passing messages along a relay system that would make the Pony Express look like a snail's pace. Talk about a cardio workout. The Chasqui were essential, ensuring the emperor's decrees and news from the far reaches of the empire travelled swiftly. But let's not gloss over the Llamas. These fluffy camelids weren't just Instagrammable, they were indispensable. Llamas served as the Incas' trusty pack animals, hauling goods across the empire. They were the semi-trucks of the Andes, minus the emissions. While they couldn't pull carts, remember, no wheels. They were perfect for navigating the steep, narrow paths where no other beast of burden could tread. Now, let's bust a myth or two. The romantic image of the Incan roads as smooth highways is a bit of a stretch. Sure, some sections were paved with stone, but many were just beaten earth or gravel. And while these roads were marvels of engineering, they weren't exactly comfy for a stroll. The Incas valued utility over ease, so travellers often found themselves clambering over steep steps or winding through vertigo-inducing passes. In terms of impact, these roads were more than just physical infrastructure. They were a testament to Incan ingenuity and their ability to dominate a diverse and challenging environment. The road network was a tool of empire, a symbol of power and control, and a reflection of the Incas' ability to bend nature to their will. It was also a reminder that even in an age without modern technology, humans could accomplish feats that still astound us today. So, the next time you find yourself stuck in traffic, spare a thought for the Incas. They were conquering mountains and forging connections long before the first car engine ever sputtered to life. Their road network was a marvel of its time, and its remnants still snake through the Andes, a silent testament to an empire that understood the power of connection, both literally and figuratively. And speaking of connections, let's dive into the human links that held the Incan Empire together. The Chasquis. If you think your morning jog is grueling, wait till you hear about these guys. The Chasqui were the ancient world's version of ultramarathoners, except instead of a medal, they got the satisfaction of keeping an empire running like a well-oiled machine. These human dynamos sprinted across the Andes with a speed that would make your Wi-Fi jealous. The Chasquis were more than just runners. They were the lifeline of Incan communication, zipping messages across thousands of miles of rugged terrain. Imagine running up to 150 miles a day, often at altitudes that would make a mountain goat dizzy, all while carrying quippus. Those knotted strings that were essentially the Incan version of iMessage, minus the read receipts. Talk about a cardio workout. These runners were the reason the Sapa Inca could send messages faster than you can say buffering. Training to be a Shasky wasn't like signing up for a 5K with your co-workers. It was more like joining a high-stakes boot camp, where the stakes included the stability of an entire empire. From a young age, these future Shasky honed their speed and endurance, scaling the Andes like they were taking a casual stroll in the park. Their training regimen would make a modern-day Olympian sweat, focusing on stamina, agility, and the ability to navigate the treacherous mountain terrain without so much as a GPS. And let's not forget the altitude. These runners weren't just dealing with a challenging landscape, they were doing it all thousands of feet above sea level, where the air is about as thin as a Kardashian plotline. Their lungs adapted to the oxygen-deprived atmosphere, making them the original high-altitude athletes. If there were a Yelp review for the Shasky lifestyle, it would probably read, "Great views, killer workout, but bring your own oxygen." The Shasky operated in a relay system, with way stations called tambos strategically placed along the roads. Picture a pit stop in the middle of nowhere, complete with food, shelter, and a fresh pair of legs to take the baton, or in this case, the quipu. These tambos were like the ancient world's version of Amazon distribution centers, ensuring messages could be passed swiftly and efficiently across the empire. Now, let's bust a few myths. Despite what some might imagine, the Shasky didn't run solo marathons from one end of the empire to the other. Instead, they worked in teams, with each runner covering a specific leg of the journey before handing off the message to the next speedster. This relay system was the secret sauce that kept communication swift and reliable, even in an age without smartphones or fiber optics. And speaking of fiber optics, let's tackle the so-called Incan internet myth. Sure, the Shaskys were fast, but suggesting they were the broadband of the Andes is a bit of a stretch. There were no routers or modems, just muscle, endurance, and an intricate network of human runners ensuring the empire's decrees and news travelled faster than a llama on a caffeine rush. The real genius was in the system, a coordinated, human-powered network that outpaced anything else in the ancient world. The Shasky's role was more than just delivering messages. They were the empire's eyes and ears. Think of them as the original intelligence agents, reporting on regional happenings and ensuring the Sapa Inca had the latest scoop from the far corners of his domain. In a way, they were the ancient equivalent of social media, minus the cat videos and influencer drama. And let's not sugarcoat it. This job was not for the faint of heart. The Shasky faced harsh weather, treacherous paths, and the ever-present risk of injury or exhaustion. It was a grueling gig that required not just physical prowess, but mental fortitude. Yet, despite the challenges, these runners were celebrated figures, their feats of endurance becoming the stuff of legend. They were the unsung heroes of an empire that thrived on connection, proving that sometimes the most powerful networks aren't powered by electricity, but by the human spirit. So, next time you find yourself grumbling about a slow internet connection, spare a thought for the Shasky, a testament to what humans can achieve when faced with seemingly insurmountable odds. Their story is a reminder that even in a world without modern technology, the drive to connect, communicate, and conquer challenges is as old as time itself. And though we're not done exploring the wonders of the Incan Empire, for now, take a deep breath. Though hopefully not as thin as the air the Shasky breathed, and appreciate the legacy of these extraordinary runners. Now that we've had our fun with the Shasky and their marathon antics, let's pivot to the economic wizardry behind the Incan road network. You might be wondering, how did the Incas manage to maintain such an intricate system without a single coin to rub together? Welcome to the world of mita, a labour tax that would make the IRS look like a lemonade stand. Instead of shelling out cold, hard cash, which the Incas didn't have, by the way, they had a system that required citizens to pay their dues in sweat. Picture this. Instead of paying taxes with money, you reported for duty to build roads, bridges, and temples. It was a kind of mandatory DIY project, but on a scale that would make even the most ambitious weekend warriors quiver in their tool belts. Now, before you start imagining this as some sort of utopian work exchange, let's get real. Mita was compulsory. If you were part of the empire, you were expected to contribute, and while this might sound like a charming community effort, it was more like a well-oiled machine designed to keep the empire's gears turning. The Mita system wasn't just about infrastructure, it was a tool of control, a way for the Inca elite to keep a finger on the pulse of their sprawling empire. In fact, Mita was a masterstroke of statecraft, ensuring that the empire had a steady supply of labor without the need for money. The laborers, often peasants from conquered regions, would spend several weeks each year working on state projects. They'd haul stones, carve paths through the Andes, and ensure the roads were as smooth as possible given the terrain. It was like being part of the world's largest construction crew, and boy did they have their work cut out for them. The genius of this system was its sustainability. By not relying on currency, the Incas avoided the pitfalls of inflation or economic collapse. Instead, they banked on human capital, ensuring every able-bodied person contributed to the greater good, or at least the greater good as defined by the Sapa Inca. And while this sounds all well and good, let's not ignore the obvious. This was a labor tax, plain and simple. Participation wasn't optional, and failure to comply wasn't exactly met with a slap on the wrist. But let's give credit where it's due. The Incas managed to maintain an empire that spanned thousands of miles without a single coin changing hands. That's no small feat. Their roads were the arteries of the empire, vital for military expeditions, trade, and communication. And thanks to Mita, they kept these roads in tip-top shape, long before the concept of road maintenance meant dodging potholes on your morning commute. Of course, all of this begs the question, what was the real cost of this infrastructure? Well, it's hard to pin down exact figures. After all, the Incas weren't exactly keeping spreadsheets, but we do know that the labor involved was immense. Imagine thousands of men and women dedicating weeks of their lives to constructing roads that would outlast even the most stubborn weeds. This was a society that truly believed in the long game, and while the roads were undoubtedly impressive, they were also a testament to the empire's might. They symbolized the Incas' ability to bend the natural world to their will, to impose order on chaos. The roads weren't just pathways, they were declarations of power, carved into the landscape like lines on a map. They were a reminder that even the most rugged terrain could be tamed with enough manpower and determination. But let's not get too carried away with the romance of it all. The reality was that these roads were built on the backs of laborers who had little choice in the matter. They were the unsung heroes of the empire, their work often going unrecognized in the annals of history. Yet, without them, the Incan Empire would have been little more than a collection of isolated communities, cut off from one another by the harsh Andean landscape. Now, you might be wondering, what about those llamas we mentioned earlier? Surely they had a role to play in this grand narrative, and you'd be right. These fluffy workhorses were the backbone of the Incan transportation system, carrying goods and supplies across the empire with a steadfastness that would put any modern delivery service to shame. And while they didn't technically help build the roads, they certainly made use of them, trotting along the narrow paths with a grace that belied their awkward appearance. In the end, the Incan road network was a marvel of its time, a testament to human ingenuity and determination. It was a symbol of power, a tool of control, and a lifeline for an empire that thrived on connection. And while the Mita system might seem harsh by modern standards, it was a reflection of the world in which the Incas lived, a world where the needs of the empire often outweighed the desires of the individual. So, as we continue to explore the wonders of the Incan Empire, take a moment to appreciate the roads that made it all possible. They were more than just a means of getting from point A to point B. They were a testament to an empire that understood the power of connection and the importance of working together, even if that work was mandated by the state. And while we're not quite finished with our journey through this fascinating period of history, we've laid the foundation, quite literally, for understanding the economic and social forces that shaped the Incan Empire. So, strap on your metaphorical hiking boots, because there's still plenty of ground to cover as we delve deeper into the intricacies of Incan society and the roads that held it all together. As we lace up our hiking boots and hit the Incan trails again, let's talk about those legendary roads we've all heard about, the ones supposedly paved with gold. Spoiler alert, they weren't. The idea of golden highways is as mythical as finding a Starbucks at Machu Picchu. While it's true that the Incas had access to gold, they certainly weren't squandering it on road construction. In reality, the roads were more practical than opulent, designed to withstand the wear and tear of daily travel rather than dazzle the eye. Now, let's shift gears and talk about those Siaski, the legendary runners of the Andes. Romanticized as the athletic demigods of their time, these guys were more like the Michael Phelps of mountain running, minus the pool. But let's not sugarcoat the reality. Life as a Siaski was grueling, a relentless grind against the harsh elements of the Andean terrain. Despite the awe-inspiring vistas, the job was about as glamorous as a marathon through a desert with snow. The Siaski may have been the rock stars of the Incan road system, but their daily lives were anything but rock and roll. Imagine sprinting through dizzying altitudes with only a handful of corn and some llama jerky as fuel. If you think your morning commute is tough, try doing it with a quipu, those knotted strings, flapping on your back, and the knowledge that a single missed handoff could mean a lot more than a scolding from your boss. It could derail the empire's entire communication network. And speaking of derailments, let's talk about the big one, the arrival of the conquistadors. If the Incas were the masters of the mountains, the conquistadors were the uninvited party crashers, and they brought their own brand of chaos to the empire's meticulously crafted world. Armed with steel, horses, and diseases that would make a medieval doctor's head spin, they weren't exactly impressed by the Incas' engineering feats. Instead, they saw opportunity, specifically, the opportunity to plunder and conquer. The irony is jaw-dropping. The very roads that symbolized the Incan Empire's power and connectivity became the superhighways for the Spanish conquest. Those well-maintained paths allowed the conquistadors to march across the empire with alarming speed, effectively using the Incan infrastructure against the Incas themselves. Think of it as the ultimate case of your own tools being used against you. A bitter twist in a tale of ambition and empire. Now, about those myths. The Siaski were not lone wolves, running heroic solo cross-country marathons. They were part of a relay system, each covering their leg of the journey before passing the baton, or quipu, to the next runner. This efficiency kept messages flowing almost as quickly as gossip at a family reunion. It's a nice story that they single-handedly kept the empire running, but the truth is that they were part of a much larger, well-oiled machine, one powered by human endurance and an imperial command structure that was as rigid as the Andean cliffs. And what about those roads again? Some were paved with stone, sure, but many more were simple dirt paths relying on the natural contours of the land. The Incas weren't in the business of making roads that rivaled Roman engineering and grandeur. Instead, they aimed for functionality and resilience, a practical choice in an environment where landslides could wipe out entire sections overnight. So, why do these romanticized notions persist? Perhaps it's human nature to embellish, to seek out the extraordinary in history's pages. The reality, though, is that these roads and runners were part of a brutal, sophisticated system that served an empire's need for control and communication. They were the arteries of a society that, for all its achievements, was still subject to the whims of a harsh and unpredictable world. When the Spanish arrived, they didn't just stumble upon an empire, they encountered a meticulously organized network that they could exploit to their advantage. The roads, so crucial to the Incas' success, became the paths of their downfall, a tragic irony that underscores the dual nature of human innovation, capable of both creation and destruction. And here's where it gets even more interesting. The Incas had no written language, so the story of their roads and runners is pieced together from the accounts of those who observed them, often through the biased eyes of the conquistadors. This lack of first-hand Incan records means that much of what we know is filtered through layers of interpretation and myth-making, leaving us to sift fact from fiction with a skeptical eye. So, as we wrap up this leg of our journey through the Incan Empire, let's pause to reflect on the lessons of history. The Siaski and the roads they ran weren't just about speed and stamina. They were about connection and control, ambition and adaptation. They were the backbone of an empire that, despite its ultimate demise, achieved feats that continue to captivate our imaginations. As we continue to unravel the complex tapestry of the Incan world, remember that history is a living, breathing narrative. It's filled with triumph and tragedy, myth and reality, all woven together in a story that's as much about the people who lived it as it is about the lessons they leave behind. Stay tuned for more revelations about this fascinating civilization. We've got more ground to cover, and the tale of the Incan Empire is far from over. From their incredible agricultural innovations to the political machinations that held their society together, there's still plenty to explore. So stick with us as we continue our trek through history, one step at a time. As we press forward into the legacy of the Incan road network, let's fast forward through the centuries to see how these ancient highways have left their mark on modern South America. Picture the Andes today, where remnants of the Shapac One, the grand Incan road system, still wind through the mountains like ancient veins, carrying the lifeblood of a bygone empire. But here's the twist. These roads, once the arteries of a civilization, had become tourist attractions, drawing visitors who trekked them with a sense of wonder and perhaps a bit of misplaced romance. Now, let's talk about the Spanish conquistadors and their unintentional role as the world's original road repurposers. After they toppled the Inca Empire faster than a Jenga tower at a toddler's birthday party, the Spanish saw these roads as more than just pathways. They were strategic assets. By the mid-16th century, the Spanish were exploiting the road network to transport silver from the mines of Potosi, now in Bolivia, to the ports of the Pacific. This was no small haul. Potosi's silver was so abundant that it bankrolled the Spanish Empire's European exploits for decades. Talk about a road trip with a financial twist. But let's not sugarcoat it. The Spanish colonization was a cultural steamroller, and while they admired the Incan roads for their utility, they were less interested in maintaining them. Over the centuries, neglect took its toll. The once meticulously maintained parts became overgrown and eroded. It's a bit like buying a classic car, admiring its craftsmanship, and then leaving it in the driveway to rust. Yet, despite this neglect, many segments of the Incan roads remain remarkably intact today. It's a testament to Incan engineering that these pathways have endured, whispering stories of history to those willing to listen or hike. Fast forward to the present, and you'll find that these roads are now part of a UNESCO World Heritage Site. In 2014, the Chapac An was recognized for its historical significance, and efforts have been made to preserve and restore sections of the road. But let's be real. Walking these roads today is far more about adventure tourism than emulating the chasqui of old. Modern trekkers are more likely to carry hiking poles and trail mix than messages for the Sapa Inca. Yet, the allure of walking in the footsteps of an ancient civilization is undeniable, even if today's adventurers are more likely to post their journey on Instagram than carve it into stone. So, what would the Incas think of their roads being used for selfie backdrops and travel blog content? It's a question worth pondering. On one hand, they might be proud that their engineering prowess still captures the world's imagination. On the other, they might raise an eyebrow at the commercialization of their sacred spaces, where once only the feet of messengers and warriors trod. It's the mixed blessing of legacy, where your greatest achievements become someone else's playground. In a broader sense, the legacy of the Incan roads is woven into the cultural and economic fabric of South America. These roads laid the groundwork for the continent's modern infrastructure, influencing routes and settlements that exist today. They represent a blend of endurance and oversight, a reminder of human ambition and the relentless march of time. The roads that once unified an empire now serve as a metaphor for the complexities of cultural heritage, both a gift and a ghost. As we wrap up our journey through the fascinating world of the Incan road network, let's take a moment to reflect on its broader significance. The story of these roads is one of connection and disconnection, of power and its fragility. It's a story that reminds us that while empires rise and fall, the marks they leave behind can transcend time, surviving as both physical remnants and lessons etched in history. And if there's one thing history teaches us, it's that the past is never truly past. It echoes through the present in ways both profound and unexpected. The Incan roads are a testament to human ingenuity, a tribute to the power of collective effort, and a reminder that sometimes the paths we carve through the world can lead to destinations we never imagined. So, as you find yourself navigating the twists and turns of your own journey, remember the Incas and their roads. They were pioneers of connection in a world that, much like ours today, was vast, challenging, and infinitely full of potential.